it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all. A good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, August 15th. Welcome to a Morning Dew edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss. Russell is mid-flight now. He is in the air on the way to Chicago. I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation is like on the plane, but if he is watching and he can see us, he might throw a line in the chat. But I am not here alone today, folks. We have a good friend of ours and a very special guest co-host joining us. He is the co-host of the Convo Couch, the host of Pasta to Go, and the craft service coordinator of the upcoming film Fight Club 2. He joins us from the set of that film right now. Craig Pasta Jardula. What's up, Pasta?
Thanks, Keaton. I got to hurry up. We got a lot of people who want some coffee and Mountain Dew. You know, the grips, they lose their cool if they don't get their code red.
Exactly.
So I got to hurry on up. Thank you for having me on, brother.
Got to get the code red. Absolutely, absolutely. Is J.D. Vance on that set? He likes the Mountain Dew. Did he crash the set for the soda?
You know, it's funny because my soda story is always Scott Horton. Scott Horton drinks Dr. Pepper like it's going out of style. And that's what I always think. When I think about people drinking soda, I think about Scott Horton drinking Dr. Pepper. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it looks like the end of Fight Club. You know the end of the last scene of Fight Club, right? Where the whole city falls to the ground. Yeah, that's what that looks like there. But you're actually in California. I thought you were in Florida. The dedication of this guy, I called him last night just to make sure we're good. You originally thought this was 9 p.m. Eastern. You're like, yeah, I got a 12 to 5, and then I'm going to jump on with you after. I'm like, no, we're 9 a.m. We're 9 a.m. And it's a good thing I called. But dedication, you look ready to go. You look ready to go. So thank you for waking up for me, man.
Well, I mean, look at you. You just had a child, right? So, I mean, you probably getting no sleep whatsoever. How can I say no to you, Keaton, after what you've been going through? You know what I'm saying? The last several, God knows how many weeks. So, I mean, you know, and I also did AM Wake Up. I did a morning show in Vegas for a year, so I'm kind of used to the early morning.
Oh, okay.
You know, so early bird gets the worm, except, you know, this is very early. Just in fact, yesterday, Keaton, I had to get up really early to go on Fault Lines. So, you know, it's a pleasure to sit down and talk with real journalists like yourself, real political analysts, commentators, whatever we're calling ourselves nowadays. It is awesome. I treasure every moment of it. So yeah, I'll get up at 4:00 for you if I have to next time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, if you do a morning show and you're based not on the West Coast in Vegas, but you're mountain time there, so yeah, you got to get up early for that. Yeah. But you're going to be in Chicago too. You're gonna meet everybody there. It's going to be just about everybody except for me is going to be in Chicago, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, daddy duties you have, but why is Russell going so early? I mean, what does he got to? It's Thursday.
Well, he's on the Jimmy.
Start till Monday.
He's on Jimmy's panel show tomorrow, which is in Chicago.
That's why.
So he's on the panel, yeah. So he's going in for that, and then he's staying through the weekend. And so yeah, that's why he flew in a few days early.
Good for him.
But yeah, it is going to be a crazy week. Just going to be an absolutely crazy week, and we hope to obviously collaborate with you a bit throughout that week as well. It's just going to be nuts. And you know, I'm in a better mood today than I anticipated being. I last night I was really like, oh, I got to talk about Kamala Harris for 3 hours tomorrow. This is going to be our lives now. If she wins, think about this. We could be spending 3 hours a day, 3 days a week for the next 8 years talking about Kamala Harris. You ever think you'd get to that place?
Well, you know what? It really is startling if you think about it too, as well. And it's kind of funny, as I was sitting here for the introduction of the show, I forgot that every single time we watch Due Dissidence in the beginning, you remind us of how stupid Kamala Harris
Yeah,
is,
right,
and how
exactly.
dumb
She's
Joe
in the
Biden
intro.
is. And sometimes we forget. You know, it just becomes like white noise at this point. But I think it's going to be like shock therapy if they somehow, if she, you know, wins the election and they put her in. It's just going to be wow. I mean, I'm still not over Joe Biden, them giving us Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris says, hold my beer.
Yep, absolutely. All right, folks, we got 8:15 in the YouTube chat, 454 that is in the Rumble chat. Please hit that like button, folks. Let's wake everybody up and get them in here. Let's work that algorithm in the morning. That's when we got to do it. We got a lot to get to today, so we will jump right in. This news broke last night. This would have made the thumbnail. I put together the graphics literally minutes before news broke. That Columbia University President Minouche Shafik steps down as head of Columbia University. She issued a lengthy statement pictured here. That's right. We are not going to read the entire statement. That's my edits on her statement, but we will go to the Columbia newspaper here. The Columbia Spectator reports Columbia President Minouche Shafik resigns amid campus turmoil over war in Gaza. University President Minouche Shafik resigned from her post on Wednesday, she wrote in an email to the Columbia community. The announcement comes only weeks before the beginning of the 2024-25 academic year and marks the end of a tumultuous year in the position. During her tenure as Columbia's 20th president, Shafik faced fierce national scrutiny for her administration's handling of pro-Palestinian student protests, academic freedom, and on-campus anti-Semitism. She is the third Ivy League president to resign in relation to campus tensions over the war in Gaza, following University of Pennsylvania's Liz McGill and Harvard's Claudine Gay. So they got the trifecta. All of them eventually were forced out. Shafik served in the presidency for 13 months and 13 days, the shortest tenure in Columbia's history since 1801. It was a short tenure. She's a loser. Yeah. She's a loser. She was in and out in 13 months. Said, over the summer, I have been able to reflect and have decided that my moving on at this point would best enable Columbia to traverse the challenges ahead. Shafik wrote, I am making this announcement now so that leadership can be in place before the new term begins. Shafik wrote that she has been asked by the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom to chair a review of the government's approach to international development and how to improve capability. With the move, Shafik will return to the UK, where she has spent the majority of her career. Katrina Armstrong, Chief Executive Officer of the Columbia University Irving Medical Center, will serve as the interim president, according to an email from David Greenwald, Law 83, and Claire Shipman, CC 86, SIPA 94, whatever the hell that means. I didn't go to college long enough to know what these abbreviations mean. Co-chairs of the Board of Trustees. Columbia's chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine wrote in a Wednesday evening post on X that any future president who does not pay heed to the Columbia student body's overwhelming demand for divestment will end up exactly as President Shafik did. The Columbia chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace, a pro-Palestinian student organization that co-organized campus demonstrations with SJP until both groups were suspended in November 2023, wrote on X that the students of Columbia will never forget the sheer violence unleashed upon us by Minouche Shafik, and we will not be placated by her removal as the university's repression of the pro-Palestinian student movement continues. Good for them, but they weren't the only ones happy about her ousting. The wrong people were correct about this for the wrong reasons. So Shafik has faced repeated calls to resign from members of the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, including Committee Chair Representative Virginia Fox, Republican from North Carolina, and Elise Stefanik, Republican from New York, as well as high-ranking politicians such as House Speaker Mike Johnson. Shafik testified in front of the committee on April 17th alongside Greenwald, Shipman, and Task Force on Anti-Semitism co-chair David Scheiser. The committee grilled Shafik on the safety of Jewish students on campus and what actions Columbia had taken to discipline the pro-Palestinian demonstrators. Stefanik applauded the resignation in a Wednesday evening post on X, writing, 3 down, so many to go. Jeez. So the Republicans were happy, But so are the protesters here from Middle East Monitor. Here you could see the moment that pro-Palestine protesters found out of the resignation, and they were quite happy about this. And this is her legacy right here. So, it is mid-August, and students are returning to campus very, very shortly, and it seems like there is no indication that these protests are going to let up, as they should not. We're coming now into the home stretch of the campaign season, where political consciousness is going to be even higher than it was when they were protesting over the winter and the spring. And so I hope they pick up right where they left off with a new president to call the NYPD on them. Pasta, what say you?
It's very interesting. I start looking at these protests, from a macro position, the big, the bigger picture. And I, went down to UCLA to see the protest on their campus.
Right.
By the time we got there, the encampment had been torn down. They had all the bulldozers in there. The police had removed all the protesters or the people who were inside the encampment of sorts. Obviously the way the media was kind of twisting things, you had some Jewish students who were acting like they couldn't get to class, where they just kind of cut off one passage and all they had to do was walk around the other side.
Right.
So an extra 5-minute walk and they get to school and whatnot. But I'm really surprised, Keaton, when you look at all this, how tied in the universities themselves are with the state of Israel, right?
Yep.
I mean, like, there's money coming from the Zionist nation that's involved with a lot of things that happen on these campuses. So when you see the demands that they're what they're asking, they usually have a list of demands. Now, you probably won't get all those demands, but you think that in a compromise, if they bring some information to light, and the people get educated, meaning the masses, the voters out there, can see how tied these colleges are to Israel and what they're doing. I think that's very beneficial, right? It's very positive for people to learn about what's going on. Obviously, we don't want to see these protests to continue because we want to see some type of change in Gaza, and I don't think anything's coming anytime soon.
Well, I'm just saying I want them to continue until there is a change, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the demands, right? That's one of their first demands is an immediate ceasefire, which seems so logical at this point. Like, even a Republican at this point should probably be saying, hey, man, how about a ceasefire at this point? But it seems like it's still going to continue to go. But, I started often thinking, too, Keaton, like, what could this president have done to kept her job, to not been on the chopping block, right? And that's just simply advocate for free speech. Tell both sides, no matter what, at the end of the day, you're going to get your chance. You're going to be protected. Your speech is going to be protected. We're not going to pull any of them. We're not going to pull any of you. And just, be that type of like non-partisan referee, I guess, of sorts. I mean, and that's what I think we should be looking for in these campuses when it comes to how they would handle these protests. So I don't know. I mean, it's just very interesting when you look at these situations. What was she supposed to do?
Well, I mean, they could have also negotiated with the students in good faith. That's what Brown University did. Brown University had encampments, and they said, all right, we're going to hold a vote on divestment in the upcoming fall session. That's what they could have done. And once Brown told the students that they would negotiate with them and hold a vote, the encampments went away. And that was the demand of these protests. And instead of negotiating in good faith with them, they called the cops on them to come and crack their heads open and drag them out. And so that's an option as well. But you are correct that if they had caved to that demand, they would have been under pressure from the right to step down anyway. Now, the interesting thing is that the president of Brown faced no such pressure because Columbia was high profile, because the protests were more raucous, though I would not concede they were violent. That's the other thing. Not a single NYPD officer has cited a single example of violence or harassment of anyone on the part of these protesters, not only on the Columbia campus, but on the New School encampment or the NYU site. No NYPD officer has cited a single example of a violent act or a violent threat against anyone coming out of these protest groups. And so that is another reason why it was so shameful of her to pull in the NYPD in the numbers that she did. Now, on the UCLA side, Pasta, where you went, we actually know that Zionist counter-protesters got violent with the pro-Palestine protesters,
Absolutely,
and the cops didn't come in until the day after it had happened to clean up, quote-unquote, right? But they didn't stop them. And so it's obviously so one-sided, and you're right. I think given how high-profile this protest was, you know, she was kind of squeezed out on both ends. I mean, look, both sides are very happy about this. Obviously, you had the protesters rejoicing, and then all of the Republicans issued statements saying good riddance. So it seemed like she was on the good side of nobody. And I think you know, had she just bargained in good faith, acting, you know, basically what you said, which is respect the free speech right of the students and negotiate. They have a demand. Your students, who pay a lot of money to come to this campus every semester, have a demand. They're being peaceful. Negotiate with them. That's what Brown did, and there was no problem.
Yeah, I mean, and when I do say it, I should be clear about it. When I say what was she supposed to do, obviously, you know, what we're talking about, some type of negotiation would have been the right thing to do, you know,
right.
And maybe even meeting some of the demands that the people listed them. When I say what was she supposed to do, meaning she was going to get it from the right if she acted a certain way. I mean, even Mike Johnson.
Absolutely.
It's just, you know, par for the course that a lot of these Republicans or populist right lawmakers are just going to attack woke colleges no matter what. I mean, they're going to attack it as so. They're just their woke agenda anyways. These people need to step down. And, you know, this whole kind of mentality from the right that, you know, it's not what like you said, there's no reports of any violence from the protesters. It's not that the protesters are violent. It's they're trying to still mark what they're doing as they're supporting violence. They're pro Hamas, pro terrorists. So, I mean, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But it's very interesting. I'm glad these protests are going on because, like, at the end of the day, you said at Brown, they negotiated to meet some of the demands. Did they meet some of the demands?
Well, they're having a vote on it. They're having a vote on it this fall. The board is going to vote on
the board is though, not the students.
Actions. Right. So they gave them a vote. So they didn't commit to anything, but they committed to basically hold a vote.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I think at the end of the day that if people are going to protest, they need to protest with their wallet. If Brown decides not to divest from Israel and they continue to take the money, continue to meet, you know, their demands of Israel, whatever they're doing over there, then people can say, well, I'm not going to send my kid to that school because of that reason. That's how we need to fight back and push back. But I'm glad they at least got the board to make a decision, you know?
Yeah, well, if the board votes the wrong way, I'm sure the encampments will be back up the next day. So that's how they'll do it. But Pasta, you just mentioned how we should be voting with our wallets on this issue, and that's a good segue into this piece here, how Coca-Cola tried and failed to suppress a boycott over Gaza. This from the Washington Post. When sales of Coca-Cola began to plummet in parts of the Middle East and Asia this summer in response to boycotts of corporations with alleged ties to Israel, the soda company's franchise in Bangladesh rolled out an expensive advertising campaign featuring a television star known for his roles in South Asian soap operas and reality TV. The star, Sharaf Ahmed Jaban, played a shopkeeper who assured customers that Coca-Cola was not an Israeli product and underscored the company's ties to Muslim communities. Even Palestine has a Coke factory, he told a group of boys, who then dropped their political objections and guzzled down bottles of the sugary beverage. But there was a problem. The so-called Palestinian factory is actually an Israeli-owned bottling company that operates on an Israeli settlement in East Jerusalem, considered illegal under international law. And so rather than read through all of this, let's go to a video here from Middle East Monitor. They put out a great synopsis of this with some clips of the ad in question.
Coke is not at all Listen guys, Coke is not at all from that place. Even Palestine has a Coke factory. These are some of the comments from Coca-Cola's new advert that has caused major backlash. Since October 7, Coca-Cola, as well as many other brands perceived to have ties with Israel, have faced consumer boycotts. In Bangladesh alone, Coca-Cola has seen a decline in sales of around 23%. And in what seems as an attempt to disassociate itself from Israel, Coca-Cola released this new advert in Bangladesh stating the following.
কি সোহেল কোক দেবো নাকি একটা?
না বাবলু ভাই, এই জিনিস এখন আর খাচ্ছি না। শোনেন নাই, এটা তো ওই জায়গা।
তো খবরটা তুমি কই পাইলা?
Israel was never mentioned, only referred to as that place. The shopkeeper then convinces the customers that Israel has no connection with Coke.
আরে মিয়ারা, কোক মোটেও ওই জায়গার না। 138 বছর ধরে 190টা দেশে লোকে কোক খায়। তুরস্কে খায়, স্পেনে খায়, দুবাইতে খায়, আর ফিলিস্তিনে তো কোকের ফ্যাক্টরি আছে।
The customer is convinced and asks for a Coke. But the advert didn't have the effect Coca-Cola hoped for. Social media users have labelled the advert insensitive, inaccurate and deceptive because there is no Coca-Cola factory in Palestinian territories. But there is a factory in the illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. The video first aired on the 9th of June in Bangladesh during the India-Pakistan cricket match, and reactions erupted offline and online. The video was removed from Facebook and YouTube for about 5 hours before being re-uploaded with the comments disabled. Saraf Ahmed Jabon, who plays the shopkeeper in the advert, was hired by Coca-Cola to act and direct. In response to the backlash, he posted this on his Facebook. I simply presented the information and data provided by their agency. This project was only part of my professional work. I have not supported Israel in any way, and I never will. My heart is always on the side of justice and humanity. So why is Coca-Cola on the boycott list? Is it true that they directly fund Israel? Coca-Cola is an American multinational. It is a publicly traded company and not owned by any single entity or country. But they are facing boycott calls, especially in Muslim-majority countries like Bangladesh, along with other iconic US-born franchises like McDonald's and Starbucks. Coca-Cola has business ties with the Israeli franchise bottler, the Central Bottling Company, which is located in an illegal Israeli settlement in the occupied West Bank. This has led to accusations that Coca-Cola is complicit in and profiting from Israel's illegal occupation of Palestinian territories.
So that's a good synopsis of the piece here, but the Washington Post did their own little investigation into this. So in its first public remarks on the controversy, the company told the Washington Post the campaign was a regrettable mistake. Quote, as a global brand, we partner with local franchises to serve local communities. We acknowledge that the recent video missed the mark, and we apologize, says Scott Leith, Vice President for Global Strategic Communication at Coca-Cola. The video has been removed from all platforms. The incident underscores the perilous moment for American companies seeking to untangle themselves from the widespread anger over Washington's military and political support for Israel's offensive in Gaza. U.S. mega brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Starbucks, and KFC all have experienced a decline in sales in regions that have experienced Gaza-related boycotts. In February, shares of McDonald's fell about 4% after the company reported that flagging sales in the Middle East contributed to it missing fourth quarter revenue targets. In January, Starbucks reported quarterly earnings and revenue that fell short of Wall Street's expectations due to headwinds that the company's CEO, Laxman Narasimhan, said included the Gaza boycott. The boycott against Coca-Cola derives from the decision of its franchisee, the Central Bottling Company, to operate out of the Adarat Settlement Industrial Zone in Israeli-occupied Palestinian territory, said Omar Barghouti, co-founder of Boycott, Divest, and Sanctions, a nonviolent activist movement opposed to Israel's occupation. That made the Coke advertisement's promotion of a Palestinian factory particularly galling, said Barghouti. The company must think people of Bangladesh and possibly all Muslims are so gullible as to fall for its botched, I dare say primitive, propaganda, he said. The misleading characterization of the factory sparked a furious backlash online and professional consequences for the advertisement's actors. The regional Coca-Cola franchise in Bangladesh, already weathering a 23% drop in sales before the commercial aired, pulled the ad and terminated another one that had been shot but never aired as part of the same campaign. Paul Argenti, a professor of corporate communication at Dartmouth, said it was striking to see an international company like Coca-Cola mishandle the incident so thoroughly. In sensitive situations like this, your facts have to be correct and your communication has to be airtight, he said. It appears that they believe they could get away with this kind of deception. Argenti acknowledged the company's global footprint and decentralized franchise structure, but said it does not excuse the greenlighting of advertisements with easily disprovable facts. Final piece. Coca-Cola was not strong enough in terms of pulling this advertisement as soon as they saw it, and they were way too slow in getting an apology out, Argenti said. Those are sins that a company like Coca-Cola, which is one of the best companies in the world, should not be able to get away with. And it looks like they aren't, thanks in large part to social media. You know, social media is a double-edged sword, but back in the day before everyone had a social media account, they probably could have gotten away with that because the truth would not have been exposed that quickly, if at all. I mean, just look at the change in tone from, obviously, the most establishment of outlets, the Washington Post, talking about BDS as a nonviolent protest organization. I mean, BDS has been demonized for decades in this country. There are laws on the books against BDS in certain states in this country.
Anti-Semitic.
Yeah, exactly. But as you said in the previous segment, Pasta, this is the way to have an impact. Everybody should, do what they can, including taking to the streets and engaging in peaceful protest, civil disobedience. But yeah, make these companies hurt who support what's going on right now. 100%. What do you think?
Well, first off, I like the little disclaimer. I drink Mexican Coke, which is bottled in Mexico and has real sugar in it, not that corn syrup, which I think kind of like as we
and it's in a glass bottle, right? So you avoid all the toxins of the plastic, right?
That too. There's a lot of
able to do this for so long.
Credence to what really the bigger point is over here, right? Like how we often say, and I think I remember when we had the show, we talked about. Did Israel know it was going to happen so they can, go ahead and do what they want to do? I don't think you can find any type of scenario when you talk about this where you can remove Israel from not being part of the globalist identity or the oligarchs or the empire of sorts. And all these companies are the fascist wing of the empire itself.
Yes.
So for me, the fun part is seeing that everybody's realizing, I mean, look at all the companies that they're boycotting. McDonald's, crap food. Starbucks, terrible coffee. Coca-Cola, bad for you. I mean, the unhealthiness of all these products anyways, I think it's great to expose. And I think it kind of like ties into this mentality that everybody starts to understand that the empire itself is evil. It doesn't care about you. It just wants to make profits. It wants to give you terrible food, awful food.
That's right.
So as you're boycotting these companies, you're starting to realize even more that, wait a second, they're evil. They want to poison us to death. So we should continue to boycott these companies no matter what. But I also do like what the actor himself said, though, Keith. Like, I didn't do any homework. They handed me data, and I just went with it and said, I'm going to direct and make my own commercial. Not do any homework whatsoever to see what the information they're giving me. What I'm saying, there's no Coca-Cola. There's even a Coca-Cola factory in Palestine. Did you bother to look that up? Did you ask for any pictures of that, pal? I don't think so.
No, he took their bullshit and he took the check, right? I mean, anybody who knows anything, if you're at all tuned into this, there are certain companies that are on the list. McDonald's is one. Starbucks is one. Coca-Cola is one. These are obvious. Now, the list is far more extensive than that. When you look, I mean, it is astounding to see just the corporate footprint that Israel has, to your point. But yeah, Coca-Cola is one of the obvious ones. So yeah, he was obviously, he wanted a payday. These corporations pay huge money for commercials, especially if you have a celebrity endorser. I mean, there's a reason why actors do TV commercials because, you're talking about a $600,000 check for 12 hours work. I mean, it's just an incredible payday for them. And I'm sure that's what motivated him. And he thought, well, I'll just, if anybody busts my balls over it, I'll give them the excuse that, hey, I didn't know. They told me, and that's that. But yeah, no, I mean, look, people are having an impact here. It can seem like a desperate situation because it is a desperate situation. But there are ways to have an impact, and one way is to, not buy Starbucks, not eat McDonald's, KFC. And you're right, it is such a perfect metaphor for the rottenness of the empire that look at what they're peddling. Pizza Hut, KFC, Domino's, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. Yeah. You'll feel better. You'll feel healthier when you start boycotting Israel. It's good for the soul and good for the body.
Yeah. What you said, the corporate footprint is the best way to put it. That corporate footprint should help people connect the dots to understand the empire, what they're doing, how they're making us sick. All those companies you just mentioned, look at the chemicals they use in their food. And it's all tied together. Big pharma, big restaurants, big tech, the whole 9 yards. Israel, the United States, it's all one big mechanism that's operating against you, the people. And I think, I'm glad when I see stories like this and people start catching this. You're right. This is the part of the internet that got out of hand from them. They thought they can control all the news, but This is where it got out of their control and where we have some power. And where we do have power, we need to use it. And the best place to use it is with our wallets first.
Yeah, and now these mainstream outlets are starting to listen a little bit. The Guardian put out this expose where there was a video that's about 5 minutes long. I just didn't have a chance to watch it yet. We'll probably cover it on Sunday. Evidence of Israeli meddling in like 30 elections around the world. So yeah, I mean this stuff is all coming to light, and it's all coming to light relatively quickly. Whereas before the internet age, before the social media age, this would never have gotten out there. That's why so many people are still so brainwashed about this. And the people who are still most brainwashed about this skew older, not to pick on our boomer friends, because that's the most divisive. I've never touched a third rail like the OK Boomer stuff. That is just extremely divisive. So I'm not saying it is intrinsic to people above a certain age, but if you came up in the era before social media, all you received about this issue were mainstream media narratives. And that's part of why you're so brainwashed about this. And it's a huge part of why younger people aren't. Because a story like this would not have made the Washington Post if there were not a social media outcry at the lies told in this ad.
Yeah, absolutely. And that lends more credence to the fact that how all big pharma and all these other, how everything's connected, even our media, right? Like we're talking about our media, we're going to get into a story today. We're going to talk about the UN, right? And with Venezuela eventually. But I mean, the connections with everybody, it's one thing. So, I mean, yeah, that's why I was proud to get up this morning and be on Due Dissidence with you, because, we have to provide this information. We have to have these conversations because they're not, definitely not in the AP, in the mainstream media at all. So I'm glad that they got this story out about Coca-Cola. I'm not buying any Coca-Cola this week. I'm going to boycott it this week for sure.
This week. I'm off soda now. I'm doing a liver cleanse diet. They say if you got a fatty liver, which I apparently do, probably from too much boozing and too much pizza. But one of the main culprits of a fatty liver is like sugary drinks. And I have been a soda jerk back in the day. I'm a sucker for sugary drinks. So I'm cutting it out. I'm not drinking it anymore. No, none. No sugar.
What are you using to replace it?
No, it's just a low-fat, low-sugar diet. Low-saturated fat, low sugar. And I already feel
you're
better.
Not doing
it for a
sugar
couple weeks now.
substitute? You're not doing a sugar substitute to replace it? Come on, Keaton.
No,
you got to be sneaking something.
No,
you got
1% milk in the coffee, oatmeal for breakfast, minimal red meats, lean meats, chicken, that kind of stuff. And I do feel a difference. Like in the 2 weeks doing it, like you can heal yourself pretty quick. I definitely feel much more energized now, despite the fact that I'm up all night every night with a new baby. So there's got to be some truth to it. Yeah.
I can't believe you're not drinking anything that's like sugar substitute, whatnot, like Crystal Light or something to kind of like, take the place of the sugariness that you were addicted to. But if you're not doing that, that's great. That's awesome. Are you a coffee guy too, or?
Oh, big coffee guy. But I was never really sugar in the coffee guy.
You don't put sugar in the coffee?
No. And I know you're a flavored coffee guy because Russell found the evidence in Jimmy's guest house of the hazelnut coffee pods.
Yeah, but that was just only on rare occasions. I drink coffee black, and I drink a lot of it. But when I would have my cheat days, I would go get some of that Krispy Kreme and some of that pumpkin spice. But that's not a normal thing. That would just have that. And Kurt liked to put that stuff in his coffee too. As well.
Okay. The plot thickens. The plot thickens. Blaming it on Kurt Metzger. Okay, there you go. All right, now we have a mystery.
I'm blaming it on Kurt. It was his fault. I got it for him.
Okay. All right. Interesting. We'll follow up on that with him and get to the bottom of this. Let's take some super chats here. Folks, we are able to read super chats but not display them for the time being. We did have a great meeting with Rumble, so hopefully that gets fixed soon. But we are streaming through Rumble Studio, and so I got some super chats to read, and I got Jake's app open so we can read Rumble rants as well. The Raging D-Head, thank you for the $5. These Harris sycophants don't seem to get that they are indeed going back, and she's going to take them further back. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Kuznetsky Bassane, thank you for the $9.99 super sticker. Appreciate that. Michael Castillo is boarding the plane to Chicago. Thank you for the $50. That's good for a cowbell. We have a digital cowbell today since Russell has absconded to Chicago with the actual cowbell. Good morning, Keaton. I'm boarding my flight to Chicago. I'm so pumped. Yes, Russ will see you tomorrow at the show. He's excited to see you. The Raging D-Head again for $2. Trump is Bill Paxton in True Lies. Thank you to the Raging D-Head. Fret Pound, thank you for the $4.99. Music your stoner uncle would have listened to in 1976. That Motown, are you referring to the countdown music, Fret Pound? Thank you for that. Landrew, thank you for the $100. There we go. Appreciate that. And I gotta find your sound drop here. Where's your sound drop here? Where is it? Russell does it. I will find it for you. Hold on. I should have asked Russell where Landrew's sound drop is because he always hits it. He has so much stuff here. Here it is.
I am Landrew.
Landrew is dead.
Thank you, Landrew, for that kind donation. Now that U.S. leadership, Israel, has legalized, A-N-A-L-R-A space P-E, good job getting around the YouTube censors there, will the genocide Harris or Trump administration follow legalizing it? I don't believe so. But you never know. I think they will try to maintain some optic distance from that. But it is a good question, Landrew, and thank you very much for the donation. Eric Husseau, thanks for the $5. Good morning, dissidents. Wake and bake while we watch the empire fall and burn. The empire will not end in a whisper or bang, but a cackle. That's right. And Kenman, thanks for the $2.99, says, I love pasta for breakfast. There you go. Little love for Pasta Jardula here. Eric Husseau, again, thanks for the $5, says, Democrat Schrodinger's genocide. It's both happening and not, according to whose vote they are demanding from. Sparky has a question for Pasta for $5. Pasta, what's the deal with the Bangladesh regime change? By the way, tell Fiorella I said hello. It will surely give her a thrill. Pasta, what is the deal with the Bangladesh regime change, to answer Sparky's
We did a little
question?
story with it yesterday for the LOL segment. I do these little segments for WBAI in New York around you.
Okay.
I do 2 segments a week there, and we did one. Jeremy Kuzmarov, the professor, he came on. We talked about it. There's been an uprising. There's been a coup of sorts, a removal of the last president. I need to speak to Cynthia McKinney, right? Somebody sent a message, and Cynthia kind of sent me a message about it not too long ago. But we have to get to the bottom, and I want to hear from her exactly what's going on. But there have been protests that came out of the colleges, actually. And the guy that replaced the existing president was the one who introduced microloans to Bangladesh years ago, and he was praised for it. But as they looked into it, they saw that it wasn't necessarily a great thing, and that a lot of people had lost their businesses and fell victim to these predatory loans. There seems to be connections, and Jeremy Kuzmarov was great about talking about this. He's the managing editor for COVID Action magazine, and he also wrote a book recently called Warmonger. So we do a lot of stories with the Clintons. There looks like there's some type of Clinton connection, Keaton, with the guy who's now in charge. I don't have his name in front of me. And the microloans and the Clinton administration, or the Clinton Foundation, excuse me. But like I said, I have to look more into this. I don't have it just yet. I've been getting information about it, but I want to talk to Cynthia first because she's going to know the most about it because she's, pretty much boots on the ground and she's over there. I believe she lives in Bangladesh and teaches in Bangladesh, if I'm not.
Oh, wow.
I think so. I think it's Bangladesh. She's somewhere in I believe in South East Asia over there too as well. I don't know. I'll find out exactly. But when I get the story, when I get it, I'll bring it to you guys, and I'll probably kick her over to a couple people so she can talk to everybody about it on the shows. I think it's important that we do talk about it. But I mean, there's a big, once again, United States willing proxy to get in there. They have reasons, just like they have reasons to try to take Venezuela away from the BRICS nations because they want all that oil. Belt and Road Initiative through Bangladesh and the ties the Bangladesh government, the prior government had with China are very strong. So any way the United States can impede that and get involved and throw a wedge in there, they're going to do it. I mean, their tentacles are everywhere. And the nerve of the United States government to talk about elections not being fair and not transparent. Right? Have fun this November, especially where you're at. It's just trash.
Oh yeah, New York. Yeah.
California and New York are like the worst.
Oh,
Hawaii.
Yeah, no, they're mafia states.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, folks, this is a quick update and a depressing one, but this is the world we live in. U.S. approved sale of Israel to, I'm sorry. Man, did I botch that. U.S. approved sale to Israel of $20 billion weapons package, Reuters reports. The United States on Tuesday approved the sale of $20 billion in fighter jets and other military equipment to Israel as it prosecutes a 10-month-old war in the Gaza Strip, although the Pentagon said deliveries would not begin for years. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken approved the sale of F-15 jets and equipment worth nearly $19 billion, along with tank cartridges valued at $774 million, explosive mortar cartridges valued at over $60 million, and Army vehicles worth $583 million, the Pentagon said in a statement. The Boeing Company F-15 fighter jets were expected to take years to produce, and deliveries were expected to begin in 2029. Other equipment would begin delivery in 2026, according to the Pentagon. An expert on the process said some deliveries could be even earlier than 2026. The United States is committed to the security of Israel, and it is vital to the U.S. national interest to assist Israel to develop and maintain a strong and ready self-defense capability, the Pentagon said. The Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, in a post on X, thanked U.S. officials for helping Israel maintain its qualitative military edge in the region and the U.S. commitment to Israel's security. The U.S., Israel's biggest ally and weapons supplier, has sent Israel more than 10,000 highly destructive 2,000-pound bombs. What's 10,000 times 2,000? Is that 2 million? 2 million pounds worth of bombs, if my math is right?
Yeah, I think so. 6 zeros.
Yeah, 6 zeros. No, actually 7 zeros. So is that 20 million pounds?
No,
Yeah,
it is 7. Wait, you're right.
Yeah, 10 and 2. So that would be 7, right?
It's
so
a lot, Keaton.
Yeah, that's a lot. And thousands of Hellfire missiles since the start of the Gaza war in October, U.S. officials told Reuters in June. The war has devastated Gaza and resulted in a heavy civilian death toll. Hoping to avert a wider Middle East war, Washington has sought with other regional mediators to arrange a ceasefire. Yeah. Now, those weapons are not due until around 2026, but just to hold them over, they released $3.5 billion to Israel to spend on U.S. weapons. That was reported August 9th. So they are not going without. Yeah, right. Exactly. They are not going without this as an ICC arrest warrant issued for Netanyahu. This as Israel continues to bomb safe zones. We covered as part of a larger segment on Tuesday the killing of 4-day-old twin boys and their mother while the father went out to pick up their birth certificate. You look at the expenditure here and the investment. That's the key. We see Israel as a long-term investment. This is why RFK said there are aircraft carrier. They are a strategic aircraft carrier in the region, and they also guarantee repeated paydays for the military-industrial complex. So this is an assurance going years into the future. These are big paydays. So is the war in Ukraine. But despite everything that's going on, we are still making long-term commitments to funding Israel. And then out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying, well, yeah, we're trying to get a ceasefire done. Meanwhile, we are committing 10 years out to give you $20 billion worth of weapons. It's obscene. You talk about the sickness of an empire. The fact that this news just kind of comes and goes, this kind of money spent to butcher an imprisoned population of defenseless people, while we have defenseless people here starving to death on the streets, having trouble to keep up with rent because of inflation, which we're going to get to a little later in the show. This is just a country in a tailspin, and that tailspin is going to continue whether Trump wins or Harris wins. That seems pretty obvious. So, look, we covered the first 2 segments. People are able to have some kind of an impact, but when you look at this, it is humbling to see what you're up against, is it not?
Yeah, by the way, somebody did the math in the chat. It is 20 million.
20 million pounds of bombs.
We got it. I mean, yeah. Listen,
what's the
to me,
square mileage of Gaza? Well, how many square miles is Gaza? Could someone do that math in the chat? 20 million pounds of bombs. I don't think there's 20 million square miles in Gaza. I don't think I would doubt that very much.
You know, it's crazy because when October 7th happened, you know, obviously we had all that information. That's when everybody started speaking. We had Norman Finkelstein, right? And I think he went back on with Russ on Jimmy Dore too as well. You know, and it was very powerful out of the gate to just explain how small Gaza really is and how many people are just jammed in there. So it's not even the fact that you have the 20 million pounds of bombs there. It's just that nobody's got anywhere to go to escape you know, all that ammo. But the thing that's really
that was an amazing interview you did with him. That opened a lot of people's eyes. A lot of people's eyes. Yeah.
The thing that's eye-opening to me about this particular situation when we talk about the 20 billion that's going there, whatnot, it's the long range, it's the long term. You know, it's investing long term in Greater Israel, right? So for me, I think that this is more about expansion. This is more about Israel, you know, not only just defending themselves or ethnically cleansing, as we like to say, Gaza, but what's next? Southern Lebanon, the Golan Heights, making sure they secure all these areas. That's what this is about. You know, this is something that's been in the books for quite some time, and it's something they're not letting up on. They're still investing in this. We're not slowing down. I mean, you would think by now, too, with the Russia-Ukraine situation, there'd be some type of slowdown. No, you know, Ukraine is now attacking Russia on Russian soil, and the Russians know they're doing it with our help. So, I mean, and what a week. What a 2 weeks that Israel had. You mentioned about the babies that were killed while the father was going out, you know, getting his the birth certificate, only to come back to that. But, you know, the fact that they assassinated one of the practical negotiator of Hamas in Tehran, right? Now the guy who took his place is a hardliner. You know, in fact, was one of the guys they accused of being the mastermind behind Al-Aqsa floods. How do you what was it called? Al-Aqsa flood or
Aqsa? Yeah.
Aqsa flood. Thank you. I get it wrong and stuff. So now he's in charge.
Al-Aqsa is the soda that we're supposed to buy instead of Coca-Cola.
Yeah, the soda. They killed 100 people in a school last week, right? I mean, it's just like there's a story that came out in Haaretz that they're using Palestinians as human shields, something that they claim Hamas always does. They're doing themselves. I mean, what a week for them. And then what do they get? They get a big $1 billion weapons package from the United States during the Geneva Convention anniversary, 75-year anniversary a couple days ago, right? Good for you. There you go and stuff. We're ruled and controlled by psychopaths. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Very, very well said. Got nothing to add to that. That was that about took the words out of my mouth. Abiding 71, Corn Pop on Quiet Skies watch list at O'Hare prior to next week. There was actually one thing I wanted to add. What you said, it's true. Israel has a long history of painting moderates as radicals. They did that to the PLO. They did that to Yasser Arafat because they don't want a two-state solution. They do not want to legitimize a Palestinian state. And so that's part of that strategy. Sorry, just wanted to add that. Nocturnal Human, don't tell me the ox balls people are Zionists, Keaton. I need that stuff. I didn't research them. What ox balls? Oh, you mean the supplements? No, I don't think so. The ox balls people. Thank you. Sparky says Israel's like a tumor on the U.S., which is often misdiagnosed as benign. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that very much. We'll take some more super chats over here. Sparky, thanks for the $5. The primitive advertising technique works great on Americans, so it was easy for Coca-Cola to assume that it would work elsewhere. Thank you, Sparky. Sparky for $10. Pasta, let Keaton know that the Venezuela election was legitimate so he can tell Russell so Russell stops providing the establishment with a limited hangout. We'll get to it, Sparky. We got it. Don't worry. It's on the list. JM, thank you for the $2. Appreciate the thumbs up. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Anytime someone says that Israel's our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. John Sheehan, U.S. missionary. Sparky, thanks for the $5, says bring Cynthia Kinney back from exile to be in the next U.S. president's administration. Sparky says Kamala married her APAC handler. Dan, thanks for the $4.99. Thank you, DD, for the free therapy and affirming us we aren't going mad. The world is mad. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate the compliment. Teg Derb, thanks for the $5. Brian Burlatic of the New Atlas did an interesting video on Bangladesh. Okay,
I want to see that.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the tip off on that. Appreciate that very much. Okay, we are going to move.
I
right
do have a
along
question,
here.
though, Keaton. I don't mean to,
of course,
digress a little bit, but I'm just very curious because you mentioned something just before we were talking about the PLO and Yasser Arafat, how they didn't want those particular secular groups to thrive because they wanted more of the radicals. And I remember when when I had you and Keaton come on, Jimmy, for the first time, and we were talking about it, that show was very important. It was like, and I was doing my Bernie Sanders impression. What does it even matter? Did Israel know that there was going to be attack and they let it happen, so therefore they can manufacture consent to do what they've wanted to do for quite some time, at least in our opinions, and that is to ethnically cleanse Gaza? Do you think that taking out this negotiator, Ismail Haniyeh, I think it was his last name. I can't even say it. Ismail. I know it was Ismail. Do you think they did that on purpose, knowing that he was more of the moderate type and they would get the hardliner in there that would then again allow them to continue to rage this war and not have any serious talk about a ceasefire? Is that what you're insinuating?
I mean, it could very well be. I mean, it's not provable, but it's in line with look, any effort to actually negotiate a two-state solution or anything approaching that, any interaction that gives some legitimacy or recognizes some autonomy of the Palestinians has always been undermined. And that's why Netanyahu flooded suitcases of cash into Qatar. That's why they backed Hamas in the early days. They want to delegitimize the Palestinian people so that they don't have to negotiate with them. And it's unknowable, like, whether certain events are orchestrated with the kind of precision that they very well might have been. But what we do know is that there is a long pattern of Israel seeking to delegitimize their negotiating partner, quote unquote, so that they don't have to negotiate with them. They can simply kill them or move them out of the way, whatever's easiest. And it was very obvious to me right when we came on, I think we came on Jimmy's show with you on October 13th, that this was going to happen. I'm not Norm Finkelstein. I've not been an expert on this issue, but you don't have to be. It didn't take an expert to know that when Netanyahu on October 7th promised an unprecedented response, he could only mean genocide, because Israel had been walking right up to the line of genocide for the last 75 years. So unprecedented could only mean this. It was not hard to see coming at all. Not in the least. All right. Oh, boy. More World War III news. Wow. What a show we got today. This is an interesting development, folks. Germany issues arrest warrant for diver over Nord Stream blasts, say reports. Investigators said to believe Ukrainian man was one of team that planted explosives on pipelines in September 2022. German authorities have issued an arrest warrant for a Ukrainian man on suspicion of being part of a team that blew up the Nord Stream gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea, according to local media reports. The man, a diving instructor identified only as Volodymyr Z, is last believed to have lived in Poland and is alleged to have dived 80 meters to the seabed at night to plant explosive devices on the pipelines, which ran from Russia to Germany in September 2022. The explosive devices detonated on September 26th, 7 months after the start of the full-blown Russian invasion of Ukraine. 4 large gas leaks were discovered on both Nord Stream pipelines close to the Danish island of Bornholm, putting the pipelines out of use. According to reports in Süddeutsche Zeitung and Die Zeit, as well as the broadcaster ARD, Germany first asked Poland to arrest the man in June, but he is thought to have gone underground, according to security sources cited in the reports. Man, you can't catch this guy. This guy goes underwater, then he crosses the border. This is like, it's the fucking guys say he should go by the name Bugs B. That's how hard he is to catch, right? The German Road R. The German prosecutor general's office, which has been investigating the case even after Denmark and Sweden dropped their respective inquiries, has declined to comment. Polish authorities confirmed on Wednesday that a European warrant for his arrest had been received. The National Public Prosecutor's Office said in an email to the news agency AFP, ultimately Volodymyr Z was not detained as he left the territory of Poland at the beginning of July this year, crossing the Polish-Ukrainian border. The media outlets also identified another man and a woman who were also Ukrainian diving instructors, Joe B. and Victoria N. Those are the names of the man and the woman there, who are also Ukrainian diving instructors, as having allegedly been involved in the attack, though no further arrest warrants have been issued for them. Earlier on, the investigation focused on a sailing yacht called Andromeda, on which traces of the explosive HMX, also known as Octogen, were found in July 2023. The boat was rented in Germany by someone using a Google account registered in Ukraine. The crew members reportedly used false identities, including a Romanian and Bulgarian passport and that of a Ukrainian soldier who denies involvement and whose identity is believed to have been stolen. The yacht, a 50-foot Bavaria cruiser, started out in Rostock Harbor and stopped off the German island of Rügen, the islands of Bornholm and Kristiansø in Denmark, followed by Sandhamn in Sweden and Kolsbreg in Poland, before returning to Rostock. Volodymyr Z was identified after the white Ukrainian registered Citroen he was driving on Rügen was caught speeding by a police camera, which captured the image of his face on September 8th, 2022. Despite evidence that this quote-unquote Volodymyr Z may have had the backing of high-ranking military officials, there is no suggestion that the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, was aware of the attack or that it was state-sanctioned. That is just an astounding pretzel of a paragraph there. Despite evidence that this man may have had the backing of high-ranking military officials, there's no suggestion that the highest rank was aware or that it was state-sanctioned. Russia and the West have blamed one another for being behind the destruction of the pipelines, which stood as an ugly reminder for many of German dependence on Russian gas. Everyone accused has so far denied involvement, including this guy who famously said a couple weeks before the war started the following.
Answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
All right. I mean, this is just really an exercise in like testing, okay, how obvious can a bullshit story be? And we can still get people to go along with it. And you know, I don't even think they're tricking people into believing that this was not a U.S.-Ukraine collaboration. I mean, you have basically a confession right there that we heard just months before the attack. This story is not anywhere near top of mind for 99.9% of people, which is probably why there's not more outrage about it. It's just kind of buried. But this really is. I mean, when you talk about 1984 coming true, you talk about 2 + 2 = 5. I mean, this is a case study in that. This is Exhibit A.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why are they doing this? Why are they talking about this? I think this is just about Germany trying to save face over here. So many people are upset for paying high gas prices. So they got to act like we care. Oh, we're getting to the bottom of this. Germany, where they caught 2 high-ranking German officials talking about blowing up a Russian bridge of sorts. Yeah, they're the ones. They're the beacon of truth and light, and they're getting to the bottom of this over here. I mean, as if Germany hasn't gone along with everything the West has said. I mean, they sent tanks there, for crying out loud, and we saw German tanks moving east, right? You know, I mean, that it's scary in itself. So for them to pull this 180 all of a sudden and act like they're trying to figure out what's what so they can save face to their citizens for handing them the bill for this war, this is just more phony baloney stuff. And it is a shame, though, too, as well, when we heard the interview the other day with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, too, as well. Once again, Donald Trump is kind of bragging that he got it shut down via sanctions or he didn't have it working because we didn't need that anymore in Nord Stream because we had the Keystone pipeline. And he even bragged about the fact that, you know, Biden went the other way. He turned off the Keystone and turned back on the Nord Stream. No, Donald Trump, Biden bombed the sucker. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was just completely muddled messaging on Trump's part, who's just not serious. I mean, look, you were the first person to get this out of me, and I just said it, when I guested on the Jimmy Dore show with you hosting, that, yeah, man, like gun to my head, lesser evil, Trump. He's been so bad lately. I mean, I wouldn't call Kamala the lesser evil either, but at this point, it's just hopeless. Like, how can you do anything but throw your hands up? I mean, he's just been horrible. He's just been horrible lately. Absolutely horrible. It's almost like he's trying to bargain with the deep state to let him in, signaling to them that he's not the kind of threat that they obviously still think he is. But yeah, that moment did stand out to me on his X Spaces, which you covered that with Kim Iverson, right?
Yeah, we did it on Kim Iverson's show. We talked about it. I didn't even get to hear the end of the interview. So right when he was starting to brag about Javier Milei, we were getting out of there. And I heard he bragged about all the what stuff, Operation Warp Speed.
Right.
I heard it was so I didn't get to hear that part, but I heard about it, and it's just it's a little bit. I mean, but I think you're on to something, right? And I mean, there's a lot of us who don't think that he was the opposite of the deep state. We kind of looked at him as a Manchurian candidate, and now he seems to be coming completely aligned with the deep state, and he doesn't really have to be that independent, crazy voice that we thought at one point was going to maybe take us out of NATO. Remember, that's the reasons why we had eyes on him.
Yes.
And then he sat there and he told George Bush and his family, in South Carolina, that they lied about the Iraq war.
Yep.
So I mean, that Donald Trump is far removed and far gone. I mean, he doesn't even have an economic plan. What's his economic plan? He's going to make our energy cheaper. No, we got to get money into our pockets somehow. I mean, there's ways to look at the economy, and I know we're going to talk about inflation and all that stuff like that, but, we have no industry here. And Donald Trump has no plan for that. And his plan for foreign policy is just, I'm going to be tough for the world leaders so they'll stay more in line. We need negotiations. We need to close these bases that we have all over the place. That's not happening with Donald Trump. You hit it on the nose when you said it perfectly. It's almost like he's bargaining with the deep state to get back in. Well, maybe he's meant to.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like that to me. And, I've been very, very disappointed with his messaging really the whole year. And, now, I mean, that's a different conversation, but that we might get into a bit later. But I think his campaign is just in a tailspin. They're just in a tailspin. Yep.
J.D. Vance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
Palantir guy. Let's go.
Brutal. Brutal. All right, we're gonna take some Rumble rants here, folks. Sparky says Bangladesh voted against Israel at the UN and was about to join BRICS, so the U.S. just couldn't have that. That's Sparky's theory. Old Stoner, thanks for the $1. Yes, the $20 billion is just more for the USA genocide in Gaza. It's USA's genocide. Israel's just doing your bidding. Thank you. Catskill Fever, thanks for the $10. Been on a tampon diet myself. Dunk it in my 1776 coffee and stick it right in my ass. Thank you, Catskill Fever. Noah Goop, thanks for the $1. 141 square miles divided by 20 million is 140,000 pounds of bombs per square mile. Thank you for that math, Noah, and thank you for that. Think about that. 141 square miles. 20 million pounds of bombs. And this is not a genocide. Yeah. Thank you for that, Noah. I appreciate you doing that math for us. Sparky says, make Israel Syria again. In those Ottoman Empire days, Levant Jews got along fine with their neighbors, whether Muslim, Christian, or otherwise. Thank you, Sparky. Fun fact, in 1492, says Sparky, the Ottoman Empire sent ships to rescue Jews from the Spanish Inquisition. Contrary to popular belief, Jews and Muslims have not been fighting each other for thousands of years. Thank you, Sparky. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $5, says on the ballot, red genocide or blue genocide, so vote harder. Thank you, Eric. The Zell, thank you for the $20. Appreciate that. You guys are forgetting Home Depot. There you go. Home Depot sells a lot of items made in Israel. Yeah, it really is. It really is just crazy. Overdue, thanks for the $5, says the Democratic Party is as democratic as Zionism is Jewish. Oh, good one. I like that one. I'm going to put a little heart on that one. There we go. Nice one. Thank you for that very much. Okay, we are going to move along here. Let's talk some inflation. Hey, before we talk inflation, while we were just talking about Starbucks and how we should boycott Starbucks, this seems like a good time to inform people about 1775 coffee, does it not? Here we go. Pasta, Forgive me, there's a barcode, there's a QR code over your face now, but you can't see it. But it's for good reason. It's for good reason, trust me.
Am I allowed to run and refresh my coffee if we're going to talk about coffee? Do I get 3 minutes?
You want 3 minutes? I'll give you 3 minutes.
2 minutes. I'm just going to run downstairs and refresh my coffee.
Go refill your hot cup of 1775 coffee. Have you heard of the recent advertising scandal? Let me break it down. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovsky, recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts. The email explicitly states the right-wing culture of Rumble is too polarizing. In other words, Dunkin' Donuts has a problem with right-wing culture and wants nothing to do with it or Rumble. So here's a solution. Stop buying products that don't support freedom of speech and freedom to practice whatever culture you want. We don't really practice right-wing culture here, but we support everyone's rights to be culturally what they want without facing advertiser boycotts. We certainly believe in that 100%. And so start supporting brands that support free speech. The competing coffee brand that we all need to get behind is Rumble 1775 Coffee. For a limited time, Rumble is offering buy 2 bags of coffee and get 1 for free. Go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Duncan to get this limited time deal. That's right. That's a good troll. That's why I love Rumble. That is a good troll. Promo code Duncan, Dunkin, at 1775coffee.com. There we go. Beautiful. We will take some super chats while Pasta's getting his refill of his 1775 coffee beverage there, of course. The only kind that anybody should drink. Take a pick, 1313. Thank you for the $20. Remember, Vicky Newland said we would blow up the pipeline also. Luckily, they both saved us hundreds of millions and contracted the job to a Ukrainian diver. Good one there. Thank you very much for that. Let me go to our app here. What did I do with the app? Where'd it go? Where did Jake's app go for the Rumble rants? What the hell did I do with it? I had it. I'm going to have to open it up. Pardon me, folks. Oh, no, here it is. I got it. Okay. There we go.
Back.
There we go. Pasta's back. All right, cool. GHU81 says, yesterday, Medhurst, I saw Medhurst show, and it showed video that was a precision strike on the exact apartment where the twins were killed. The mom was also killed, was a pharmacist. Yes, that's right. According to Medhurst, the reason why Israel hit the apartment building was that they are targeting the mom of the twins because she was a pharmacist, and Israel's targeting anyone in the health sector. Keep in mind, Israel has a civilian registry of every Palestinian in Gaza. That's right. They know where Hanaya was in Iran, but yet they're hitting civilians because they think Hamas was there. Wow. Thank you for that information. That is just gut-wrenching. It's just horrible. Just absolutely despicable. Okay, we're going to move on to the domestic front here. Folks, I don't know if you heard, but inflation is down, and so our worries are over. Inflation fell below 3% for the first time in years, reports the New York Times. Annual inflation cooled more than expected last month to 2.9%, according to a consumer price index report released today. It was the first time that the inflation gauge had dropped below 3% since 2021. On a practical level, there's no meaningful distinction between 2.9% and 3%, our economics reporter Ben Castleman told me. It's the difference between your $6 latte costing $6.17 next year or $6.18 next year. But the larger decline in inflation is absolutely significant. So that's what they mean by 3%. It means that prices are growing by 3% or now less than 3%. So 1% of $6 is 6 cents, and so 3% of that is 18 cents. That's where they're getting that math from. Just 2 years ago, prices were rising at more than 9% per year, and prominent economists were arguing that it would take a recession to bring inflation under control. Now inflation is basically back to its historic range, albeit still above where the Fed would like, Ben said. That's a pretty remarkable turnaround. Most economists now see a recession-free soft landing as the likeliest scenario, Ben said, but the economy still faces potential hazards. The unemployment rate is low, but it has risen steadily, and many people are falling behind on their credit card bills. Those factors, along with cooling inflation, have put the Federal Reserve firmly on track to cut interest rates at its meeting next month. So this is another bit of gaslighting. The fact that inflation has slowed under 3% just means that prices are going up from where they already are at a slower rate than they did last year. But the starting point is already a very high price because we had the huge inflation bounce. And nobody is believing that things are getting more affordable. They're just becoming less affordable at a slower rate than they were in previous years. And you know who makes this point in a minute is J.D. Vance. But first, I want to go to Joe Biden taking a victory lap on this, unburdened by the task of getting reelected. Here he is answering a reporter on this.
Yes. Shh, I'm not going to answer your question. I'm talking to them first, okay? The audience first, okay?
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I'm a lame duck president. I get to talk to you how I want now. So shut up. I'm taking the question I want.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Press. Thank you, President. Thank you, Press. Thank you. Thank you all.
They're trying to kick the press out.
Has the U.S. beat inflation, Mr. President?
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
And Mr. President, did you know your...
Thank you so much. We got to move this way, Gabe.
Mr. President, did you know your son reached out to...
My policies are working. Start writing that way. Mr. Democracy here, ordering the press to cover him better. Start writing that way. Inflation is under control. But here's J.D. Vance on his new internet talk show, Between Two Trucks, giving some perspective to this claim that inflation...
Oh, that's great.
that inflation has slowed down. Hold on, let me get the video here. There it is. Perfect.
Sir. New York Times, I wanted to ask you about the latest economic news from this morning with inflation now being under 3%, the lowest rate since mid-2021. What is your sort of reaction to that news?
Well, I think the crowd reaction says it all. Look, when they say that inflation is down, they mean from a baseline where groceries are already 30% more expensive than they were when Donald Trump was president. And they're not saying it's coming down. They're just saying it's not going up as fast as it was 3 years ago. That is not a reputation or a record to brag on. That's a record to be ashamed of. Why did it take them so long to get inflation to where it is? And why are prices so high? It's because Kamala Harris failed to do her job.
There we go. All right. So that's his point. And look, don't take it from a mean couch fucking hillbilly Republican. Take it from black voters in Philadelphia if you want. Simon Atiba tweets out, a black woman in Philadelphia devastated by inflation breaks down and blames the Biden-Harris administration, saying that inflation is killing us without killing us.
Does inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
What do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't eat. But I have to go work.
There you have it. Not only that, I'm down to eating ramen. Social Security benefits aren't keeping up with inflation. This dated August 14th. Current, even after Biden boasts of lowered inflation rates. Until last year, Janet Albrecht could afford to eat roast beef sandwiches or tuna salad for lunch. But the widowed 78-year-old now has to skimp on her meals because her Social Security benefits haven't kept up with the rising costs for food, housing, and health care in recent years. A retired graphic designer, Albrecht estimates she's paying $100 more a month at the supermarket than she was before inflation started skyrocketing. And don't forget, $100 more a month, that's for a single widowed woman. You know, we got 5 people in the house now. We're spending a hell of a lot more than $100 extra per month. I mean, it is 4 or 5. It's basically $100 per person per month. Her landlord increased the monthly rent by a total of $65 over the past 2 years. Her utility bills are larger, and some of the 7 medications she takes daily after suffering a heart attack have gotten more expensive. She hasn't had a haircut in more than a year, though she doesn't like to wear her hair so long. I'm down to eating ramen for lunch, which I never ate in my life until recently, said Albrecht, an Indiana, Pennsylvania resident who relies primarily on $1,163 in monthly Social Security payments. If it's not marked down, I just don't eat it. I haven't eaten beef since I don't know when. I can't afford it. Many other senior citizens are also feeling the inflation squeeze. Social Security benefits have lost 20% of their buying power since 2010, according to a recent analysis by the Senior Citizens League, an advocacy group. Those who retired that year would need a boost of $370 a month or $4,440 a year on average to regain the lost value. Put another way, every $100 a household spent in 2010 would only purchase $80 today. Mm-hmm. Social Security benefits have risen by 58% between 2010 and 2024, but the cost of goods and services purchased by typical retirees jumped 73% during that time, the league said. The prices of bread and ground beef, for instance, have shot up nearly 147% and 73%, respectively, over that period. And this is the part that I think goes unsaid all too often, is that where people are feeling inflation worst is where it's highest, which is food and groceries, necessities, things that people cannot do without. I mean, I just did a shopping for the house yesterday. Just little things, man. A box of those Thomas's corn muffin cakes, whatever the fuck they are. Basically a bunch of cornmeal. A box half full of cornmeal, half full of air. $5.29. Like, where the fuck you get this from? Paper towels. Yeah. Like,
those used to be 99 cents, by the way.
Yeah, no, everything. It's like, it's insane. Yeah. It's just absolutely insane when you think about, like, when I think about, 10 years ago, it's like another world. When I think about 5 years ago, it's like another world. McDonald's, like, these fast food companies have started bringing back their meal deals to bring people back because a Whopper meal at Burger King, $14. Subway. I once ran into a Subway because I was in a rush and I just wanted something. I haven't been to a Subway in years. They used to have $5 footlongs at Subway. Footlong sandwich at Subway now with chips and a drink is like $13, $14. It's unbelievable. And the gaslighting just, it can't work. And this is what is so amazing to me, is that this is the most winnable election for Trump. And he can't seem to stay focused on this message. Look at that. You heard it from J.D. Vance. You heard it from black voters in Philadelphia. You heard it from this old woman trying to live on Social Security. It's unlivable. And now here you got Biden coming out and touting his record as if this is some victory. You're talking about a lower rate of price increase on top of an already hyperinflated market. And so I just don't know how this narrative holds. That Biden has conquered inflation. It's just preposterous on its face in ways that everybody can feel. Everybody shops for food. Everybody has to eat.
Listen, Corn Pop, I told you to be a soft landing. There's a soft landing, Mr. White.
Exactly.
All right?
That's the word.
Just because you have to pay $5.29 for your Jiffy corn muffins now, you got to cry about it. Forget about it. Listen, if this is what's happening to the people who are retiring today, right now, what is it going to be like 10, 20 years for us down the road? I mean, it's going to be awful.
Right.
And, the sad part about it is, too, is as we talk about that bell pepper that lady was talking about, that bell pepper, too, now that you have to pay $5 for, probably is filled with pesticides and all those other things. Yep. I mean, the whole quality of our food has went down. And you're right. Every single time you even go to fast food now, the $5 footlong is gone, right? You could spend $20 a person at McDonald's now. I mean, yes. When is this going to end? And I mean, it gets back to us talking about, hey, instead of spreading our empire everywhere around the world, instead of importing food in, and this is something that's kind of crazy that over the last 4 years or since after COVID, the Republican, the populist right has gotten more of a grasp on growing their own food, making, building their own resources. We need to do that as a nation. We have to start bringing it home. We have so much land in this country that we can be, growing our own food, keeping it real cheap, and be healthier food. So, I mean, when you look at this, and let's be honest, too, sticking to the story, Keaton, we know this came out now because it's election time and they got to make the Democrats look good. I think there was an article or some report the other day that was saying that all the advertisement that's going for Kamala Harris, it's obvious that the advertisers are favoring the Democratic Party that are putting those up on Google and all those places that seem to be more Democratic establishment friendly. So they're releasing this report now to try to help them with the election coming up. And that's why they're saying it's a soft landing. But I don't think it's going to work because I think people realize, but I think the big question for Donald Trump is, and I've been saying this since this interview the other day, what's your economic plan? The one time I really did appreciate Donald Trump for what he did when he tried is when he put tariffs on certain manufacturing products in China to try and bring that manufacturing home. Like it wasn't just overall. It was specific things, I think, in the marine world, the boating world, or whatnot. But he failed to do so because the Chinese said, we could just wait you out. We don't care. You're going to be gone. We'll wait for the next guy to come in. But that's what we need. We need somebody to think about, how do we get some industry back home? How do we start making things again? How do we start fixing our things? I think the short-term solution is starting growing your own garden if you can. And I understand that's probably hard for most people to do, especially most people in this position, but we have to come up with solutions like that. And until we do that, until we actually act upon that, I think that this particular avenue we're going down, when you see these people, when you're talking about their Social Security benefits, everything they have to pay and where it hits most, you're right, it hits most in the grocery store. You can't get out of there without spending $100.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is going to continue to get worse until we find a real solution to change things. And praising your God, Donald Trump, is not going to change things unless we have a serious solution moving forward. And that's what I always talk about when it comes to him and the economy. Like, what did he really change? What changed in the economy when Donald Trump became president? Everybody was still working for an app. The homeless number was still growing. The military budget was still increasing every year. What really changed?
Well, this is why I think he's having a problem, because they never came up with. Look, they didn't put forward a convincing economic program in 2022. That's part of why there was no red wave, because a lot of voters just voted on Roe v. Wade because the Republicans were screaming about inflation and people were very angry about inflation, but they didn't say anything that they were going to do. They didn't put forward any real plan to bring it under control. And, people are aware enough to know that Republican economic policy is almost always tax cuts for corporations. And how is that going to bring down prices? Corporate profits are at an all-time high. Corporate profits are almost double what they were in 2012. And that's profits. That's not revenue. So don't tell me that profit is adjusted for inflation. We're talking about a net profit. We're talking about dollars over expenditures. Right. And so inflation factors into that a little bit in terms of the cost of energy and things like that. I'm not saying that's not a factor, but there is obvious price gouging going on. And how you can take a trip to the supermarket and not realize that they're fucking you on these products is just unbelievable. 3 paper towel rolls, $8.99 for the store brand paper towels. I mean, it's the most obvious fucking thing in the world. Don't tell me that has nothing to do with inflation. You can't tell me that, especially when corporate profits are at an all-time high.
Yeah. And when you talk about these corporate profits, I just want to mention that during Donald Trump, I was on Jason Burmis' show on TNT radio the other day, and he was even kind of touting the fact that, well, I hope these tax cuts stay, if Donald Trump gets back in the office, they continue to go through. When they had those when he had those tax cuts, we had that particular year record stock buybacks by the companies and the CEOs themselves to enrich themselves. It was only broken last year with Joe Biden's, presidency. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. Democrat or Republican, the rich continue to get rich and the poor stay poor. And I don't see anything changing. And you did mention it. And I'm glad you're mentioning this and talking about this. People need to talk about this. What is your economic plan, Donald Trump? It's got to be something more than drill, baby, drill. How are we going to get out of this? And if you as a Trump supporter out there, and I've seen a couple of them on the chat over there, I'm voting for Trump. He's the lesser of two evils. And I do think he is the lesser of two evils. I still think that, when it comes to our speech, the Democrats are fascist as can be, and they are the most dangerous, a party on the planet right now at this time. Look what they just did with Kamala Harris. they coronated her. She hasn't won one delegate anywhere in any election, not even in California in 2020 when she dropped out a week or 2 weeks before the election. But the mail-in ballots were already mailed out, so they already had a chance to vote for her, and she still won no delegates.
Right.
I mean, it's just we're in some serious bad times, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it. But what I sense and I see down the road is maybe a war with China, and we could have more manufacturing of weapons over here, of American dollars, of American weapons made right here, and maybe that's the financial plan to get us out of this slump. I mean, because we are in it bad. I mean, what are we going to do moving forward? Like I said, we don't make anything here in this country. We don't fix anything anymore. What are we going to just continue to work for apps and be a service-based economy? So now that's the big thing. I'm not going to tax tips, which is not even the argument, which is not even the discussion. The discussion is, what should the restaurant owner be allowed to do with the waiters' tips? Because that's what's happening right now. They're taking those tips and they're distributing it throughout all the employees throughout the restaurant, so they don't have to pay them as much. They're paying them with your tips. And that's the big argument and the question right now. But they get away from it. We're not going to tax your tips. Like, come on. Let's have a real conversation and discussion for once, please.
Well, Kamala is making her economic policy address tomorrow, and apparently she's going to pitch some anti-price gouging measure, which the implementation of that is always dicey, obviously, when you talk about like price controls and things. But it's something, and I say this as a pundit, like if Trump is not careful, she will eat his lunch again, just like she did on the no tax tips. Like he's got to get off of the she's Indian, not black, and start getting on inflation. And you have to start getting on message quick, because she's going to, and the momentum, is already going the wrong way for Trump very, very fast, heading into a convention where she's going to get an even bigger bounce. And so, it is going to be a very interesting next few weeks heading into the
it's like
post-convention blitz.
Yeah. Well, it's like he's handcuffed himself. Like the area he can attack Kamala the most, I think, would be her record as a DA, right? Like what she's done, how she's helped. He doesn't even mention his bill, right? The First Step Act. Because he thinks that, or at least whoever's talking to him or advising to him says it's going to make you look weak on crime. Don't talk about that. That's something he should tout, and then he should go after Kamala Harris for her record there. But he's staying away from it because of this mentality or this ideology that you got to look tough on crime. I call it immigrant crime. You're going that way with no data whatsoever, what you're trying to claim too as well. Once again, he blames everything on immigrants. And what are they going to do? They're going to pick up all the immigrants, have a mass deportation, and we're going to hear a song, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. Right. Now, all the Americans can come out and start picking the fruit and cleaning the pools and being nannies where the immigrant was doing that job. Now they're free to do that as if they're going to do that. No,
he's making the same mistake that Ron DeSantis made, which doomed his campaign, which is he's messaging to his already devout, hardcore online base. He's going after, like, they're releasing sound of her saying the George Floyd protests aren't going to stop, which is the exact opposite message. The message that appeals to the independents and the persuadable moderates, especially black men who are flocking to Donald Trump, is that she locked up black men for marijuana crimes, for their child's truancy. Like, that's the direction you should go. But the end wokeness and fucking, cat turd isn't going to like that messaging. And he'd rather throw red meat to those idiots than actually try to win a campaign. And he's just going one way, the wrong way. It is a completely insane strategy that he has implemented these past few weeks. I've never seen an implosion like this. A month ago, we were talking about his presidency as inevitable. We were just taking it as a fait accompli. Okay, Trump's in office. There's nothing that's going to change. And now it's a nail biter with the odds maker saying Kamala's the favorite, because at this rate, on this trajectory, she is the favorite. If the election were held today, it's probably 50-50. The election's not going to be held today. At this rate, given the respective momentums of the campaign, she's on track to win this election, which should be an unlosable election for Donald Trump. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, we have to also factor into what the elites want or the oligarchs want, meaning I'm a believer that we have selections, not elections. So I don't know. It's such a wild card situation. And at the end of the day,
all that being what it is, Trump is still responsible for his messaging, for his campaign. And it's all wrong.
Absolutely.
Now. Yeah,
absolutely. But we've been talking about this, but the reason why some of us thought he was somewhat of a Manchurian candidate is where he's going to bring us. It's not so much what he's talking about now, but where we'll end up, where we'll go. A Trump presidency is different than a Trump campaign. We saw that from 2016 when he got in and where he went. I mean, at the end of the day, they look at him as the peace man candidate, right? The peaceful. He's the one more pro-peace than Kamala Harris. That's not necessarily true. Like I talk about the budget every single day. I mean, the things he did. We didn't mention the Abraham's Accords, right? Which pretty much squashed any talk of a two-state solution, which could have led to this actual attack on October 7th. Could have been one of the main reasons it happened, right?
Right.
So, I mean, his campaign is different than his presidency, and you're absolutely right. But at the end of the day, it's where are you going to move us? Where we're going to go? And it just seems like if it were a fair election, he would still wipe Kamala clean. You know what I'm saying? Kamala's got to have Meg the Stallion coming into a concert before she can fill it on up. People get in there. So I still don't believe in the illusion. But you are right. There is a big problem with his messaging. But at the end of the day, I think it was designed to make sure that we still have to choose between, throw up or poo. And now it's evident it's throw up or poo once again.
There you go. All right, let's take some more super chats and move on. Take a pick. Remember Vicky Newland for $20. Thank you. Take a pick. Said we could blow up the pipeline also. Luckily, they both saved hundreds of millions and contracted the job to a Ukrainian diver. Oh, yeah, I got that one earlier. Thank you, though. Take a pick. 1313, thanks for the $5. Keaton, you could start a Cackling Kamala Coffee Company, Sugar Walls Company Vice President. There you go. Sparky for $2 says, build a better world with bricks and go Yemen, fight the power. Seb Griffiths, thank you for the $2. The 9/11 moon landings were an outside job. Thank you, Seb Griffiths. Appreciate that. Good joke. Sparky, thanks for the $5. At least all the money printed to fund wars has nothing to do with inflation. There you go, right. Attack of the Windmills, thanks for the $4.99. Greetings from the generation that mankind forgot. There is nothing better than seeing the younger generations being so in tune with humanity. Thank you. Well, that's a very kind comment. I'm going to put a heart on that one. Thank you, Attack of the Windmills. Appreciate that. American Disaster, thanks for the $2, says, I work at a grocery store and 50-cent raise the past 2 years. Well, that's the other thing. The wages are obviously not keeping up with the price of goods. And thank you for saying that. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Groceries and gas aren't even involved in the official inflation figure, so inflation is much worse. Adults can handle missing a meal or two, but children and teens need a lot of it. Think of families. Thank you. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Trump is only as good as the last person he spoke with about an issue. That's right. Righteous people should effort to always be the last person Trump spoke with. Displace Lindsey Graham, Mike Pompeo at all. Yes, he is very impressionable. Very impressionable for sure. Take a pick. Thanks for the $10. Had two $11.99 combo plates, Chinese tea and tip, and it was less than 2 Big Macs and 2 10-piece nuggets, huh? Yep, that's right. Absolutely. No, McDonald's is now like more expensive than real food. 30 milligrams. Thank you for the $20 Rumble rant. Appreciate that. My grandma can't understand anything on TV besides her MSNBC. Would be funny if they purposefully talk slower and clearer to cater to the only people that watch that stuff. Thank you. Yes, I know how it feels. Believe me. Sparky, thanks for the $2. Spoil BlackRock's plan. Make Ukraine Russia again. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Make Ukraine Russia again. Don't even leave a patch called Ukraine lest it remain a NATO playground, carpetbaggers, money laundry, and becomes a BlackRock property. Break it off in BlackRock. Make Ukraine Russia again. You said that one twice, Sparky. Thank you, though. Noah Goop, thanks for the $1. 2024 inflation report unburdened by what has been. Thank you. Good one. All right, got a couple more things to do here. This is a quick one, folks. Here is a spokesperson for the Kamala Harris campaign. I think his name is Michael Taylor or Tyler. We'll find out on the Chiron in just a minute. His name escapes me for the moment. But here he is being pressed on CNN why she has not committed to a press conference yet, and will she in the near future?
Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Listen, the vice president and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign and adding Governor Walz to the ticket. You saw the ways in which they went across the battleground states last week, generating rallies of of thousands, 10,000 here, 15,000 there. But
Michael, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump, and she said last week we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month. What she's going to be focused on, and what this campaign is going to be focused on, is communicating directly with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she commits.
Okay, now before we get into the rest of this, what he just said there, they asked, "Will you commit to a press conference?" And he said, "We're going to do a sit-down interview by the end of the month." The sit-down interview, my money is it'll be a lovely powwow with a Jen Psaki type asking her, how exhausting is it being so great all the time? That's what a sit-down interview could be. You could pick a friendly host and do it that way, whereas a press conference is much more spontaneous. You're going to have more pointed and obviously potentially hostile questions from hostile media outlets. So there's a big difference. This guy's trying to be like, yeah, we'll do a press conference. A sit-down interview, right? He's trying to pivot off of, are you going to do a press conference? Well, yeah, we're going to talk to the press. We're going to do an interview. That's how
You're saying a sit-down interview with a friendly host like Joe Biden had Bob Costa?
Yeah, right.
Right. Like Elon Musk was there for Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Do a press conference this week.
Okay, so now this guy asked, will she give a press conference?
Pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she
Can you commit to a press conference this week?
This past week. That's why we're doing a bus tour in Pennsylvania as we head into Chicago. And it's why we'll sit down for an interview before the end of the month to make sure that we can have a deep dive conversation about the vision that Kamala Harris has for where she wants to take this country and the contrast that we're going to have with Donald Trump. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that throughout the rest of
but one interview by the end of the month.
This month and throughout the rest of the campaign.
I don't want to belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal.
Okay, so no commitment to a press conference by the end of the month. So look, they're obviously trying to hide her from the press. And why wouldn't they? Look, there was a poll that came out in mid-July. This was before Biden dropped out, that had Trump beating Biden pretty badly, but Trump losing pretty badly to a, quote, younger Democrat. Younger Democrat, a generic, nameless, faceless younger Democrat, actually beats Trump, whereas Biden obviously lost. And so they're obviously the effort on the Democrats' part is to make Kamala as generic as possible by exposing her as little as they possibly can. And it is the responsibility of the Trump campaign to blunt her momentum if they want her to sit down for a press conference. Asking Kamala to sit down for a press conference now would be like if you're in a football game and the other team is running the ball every single play, getting 10 yards a run, and they're up 2 touchdowns on you. Why don't you throw a pass? Well, because in football, you don't throw a pass until you have to throw a pass. Because when you throw a pass, 2 out of 3 outcomes are bad. It's either incomplete, an interception, or a catch. And so they're not going to take a risk and put themselves in danger of being exposed in a negative light unless they have to. So if you are the Trump campaign and you want Kamala to sit down for a press conference, you have to figure out a way to blunt this momentum. Otherwise, there's nothing in it for her to do it. And she's not going to do it unless there's something in it for her to do it. You can't really fault her campaign for that. That's just good politics. And so, is it sleazy that they're hiding her from the public? Yeah, because they're trying to win on nothing. You know why? Because they have polling that says nothing beats Trump, because Trump is not a popular figure. And so if you want to reverse this, you're going to have to make something happen on the Republican side. And as we covered a little bit in the last segment, the Trump campaign's not able to make anything happen right now. They're in a tailspin right now. They've completely stalled out.
Yeah, and this is a tactic they've been doing for quite some time. I just sent to you in chat a little clip, 1:14, minute 15 seconds, when we went to the DNC convention in California in Long Beach when she was running, and we got into the press conference room. You can tell when I started asking her a question, it was one of those uncontrolled rooms. The look on her face is like, who is this asking me a question? And please, God, don't make it a tough question, right? And I've been around where Kamala Harris has come out of rooms and there's been cameras and microphones there, and she's ignored it to go dancing with the band and whatnot. I mean, this is what they do. And they have nothing positive to run on. So like you say, run on nothing. And that means hide the candidate from any type of hard questioning, keep them in their own echo chamber, stay on message. I mean, that's why Joe Biden has been touting, I did a good job, because he wants you to believe that Democratic policies are better than Republican policies. So even though he's got to step down with a broken heart and a heavy hand, or whichever way it is, a heavy heart and a broken hand, who knows, he's got a broken brain. You know what I'm saying? Right. There's nothing. They're running on nothing because they have nothing to tout. So all they could do is hide. And that's what they'll continue to do. That's why it's so important when you see what Jose Vega is doing, you know what I'm saying? Getting in these other rooms, getting these questions, you know, it's so important. We need to continue to expose these people for who they are, you know, because they are. That's what they're doing right now. They're just hiding Kamala. And that's what I would do, because as soon as she opens up her mouth, what are we going to get, Keaton? Russia's a big country next to Ukraine, which is a small country. I mean, the woman never has anything bright to say whatsoever.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And here I just downloaded that video that you sent me, and so let's take a look at the convo couch getting a question in against Kamala Harris.
You once recently said that Donald Trump should have his Twitter suspended.
I did.
Isn't that a cause for concern for people who really are big on the First Amendment rights and our civil liberties?
You don't have a First Amendment right to threaten a witness. And, you know, you can ask the families of the whistleblower, you can ask the families of the people who have been on the receiving end of Donald Trump's threats. And you will know that this is a matter of their safety. It is a matter of very serious threats to their safety, to their livelihood. It is also about clearly what Donald Trump tries to do with the microphone that has been given to him by the American people, which is to intimidate and to try and beat down people. And yeah, absolutely. And it's a private corporation, and they have terms of use, and private corporations should be held accountable. So yeah, I don't back off of that at all.
There you go. That's Pasta Jardula getting a question in on Kamala. And yeah, that's the classic. That's the safetyism defense combined with the private company's defense. Right. Yeah, your speech is violence. Speech is violence, and private companies have a right to determine which speech is violent. Right. Yeah. And there are already laws in the books against threatening violence. Like, this is what makes that such an obscene argument. Is like, it is obviously, and for good reason, illegal to threaten people. The First Amendment doesn't cover that. Neither should terms of use. But that's covered by the law. That's covered by the law. What they're talking about here is empowering big tech corporations to determine, outside the bounds of any constitutional First Amendment framework, where your free speech begins and ends. And that may as well be government tyranny. Like, this is what people don't understand. This is what a lot of libertarians don't understand. If these tech platforms become more powerful than the government in terms of dissemination of information, then they have bigger potential to rule over you in that way than even the government does. Because you don't show how many people go to a town hall once a week and mouth off. Almost nobody, but almost everybody has a social media app on their phone where they go and mouth off. And so if big tech can control that, they're more powerful than the government. They influence you in a much more personal, direct, and common way than a government ever could.
Well, I think that we're seeing a lot more proof that the government is using that weapon to do what they want. I mean, this new, I don't know if you saw the tweets that were put out by Matt Orfalia with these House committees.
I did. I want to cover that. It's just such a long piece. We might have to do it on Sunday, but yeah.
I mean, it's so telling that they're directing them and telling them what to do. And the nefariousness of those emails, where they're saying, playing it right out in the open. Facebook is like, well, we have other ways of doing this, of demonetizing and shadow banning, you know, that we can turn off the acceleration. And I know what that's like, you know, the Convo Couch. We understand what that's like. We've been demonetized on that channel now for 4 years, I think it is. Yep. I can't even remember what it is, but they can just turn a knob and they can do what they have to do, but they do it at the behest of the government. That's one of those good questions. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Who's zooming who? Is big tech working for the government? Is the government working for big tech, or are they just all one and the same? You know, I mean, I think they're all one and the same at this point. And that is the biggest issue we're dealing with right now. That is the hugest issue on the table, because once they take our voice, forget about it. And they're doing it still to this day. I know there were people putting in the chat, Keaton. I didn't know if it was confirmed or not. Susan Wojcicki, Did she really die? Is that confirmed?
She
was
did.
that a rumor?
Yeah, she died of lung
She was
cancer.
the
Yes.
CEO of YouTube for quite some time. She was the CEO of YouTube, a big time Clinton donor, right? And she ruled over YouTube at a time where they got censorship crazy.
Yep.
And until we get transparency there, until we get transparency in our elections, nothing's going to change. And that's what we need to push for more than anything. But unfortunately, the powers that be, they always want to catch the fraudsters in the system that is made and built for fraud. No, go after the system that's built on fraud, that being elections, that being big tech. Demand transparency, demand that we see everything. You know what I'm saying? We need to be pushing with our solutions, not trying to catch the fraudsters in a system that's built for fraud. We got to change the system itself. The system itself is fraud.
I agree. Sparky, thanks for the $10. There was a time in the UK after World War II, not sure when it stopped, common people would need to learn a practical skill such as welding to fall back on in order to pursue a college degree. Good idea. Thank you, Sparky. Dominic Morrow, thanks for the $5 for Russell's piece on the Congo. Yes, glad you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that piece very much as well. Thank you for that donation, sir. EJ Imagine, thanks for the $5 on Rumble. I believe Trump said he'd get away with tax on Social Security benefits. Thank you for that, EJ Imagine. Appreciate that. Okay, let's plug along. We got two more stories. These are both pretty quick ones. Okay, this is really diabolical. This is more Russell's beat than mine, but this story is really quite amazing here. Disney wants wrongful death suit thrown out because widower who bought an Epcot ticket and had Disney Plus. Wow. So what does this mean? I mean, this is sleaze on another level. A man suing Walt Disney Parks and Resorts for the wrongful death of his wife is facing a new legal hurdle. Disney is trying to get it dismissed and sent to arbitration because he signed up for Disney Plus years earlier. Court documents show that the company is trying to get the $50,000 lawsuit dismissed because the plaintiff, Jeffrey Piccolo, signed up for a 1-month trial of the streaming service Disney Plus in 2019, which requires trial users to arbitrate all disputes with the company.
Jeez.
That is unbelievable.
Oh, my God.
You sign up for Disney Plus, and the terms of use that no one reads, they just kind of scroll through, says, by the way, any disputes with the Disney Corporation have to be settled in arbitration. They're trying to use that clause to get out of a wrongful death suit for a poisoning, essentially, at their theme park. Company lawyers also claim that because Piccolo sued the Walt Disney Parks website to buy Epcot Center tickets, Disney is shielded from a lawsuit from the estate of Piccolo's deceased wife, Kanakporn Tang Swan, who died of a reaction to severe food allergies. In a legal filing responding to Disney's claims, Piccolo's lawyer, Brian Denny, called Disney's argument preposterous and said that the notion that signing up for a Disney Plus free trial would bar a customer's right to a jury trial with any Disney affiliate or subsidiary is so outrageously unreasonable and unfair as to shock the judicial conscience. Yes, I agree with that. Walt Disney Parks and Resort is explicitly seeking to bar its 150 million Disney Plus subscribers from ever prosecuting a wrongful death case against it in front of a jury, even if the case facts have nothing to do with Disney Plus, Denny wrote in court papers as a response. Piccolo is seeking damages in excess of $50,000 pursuant to Florida's Wrongful Death Act, as well as damages for mental pain and suffering, loss of companionship and protection, loss of income, and medical and funeral expenses. Disney didn't immediately respond to CNN's request for comment. So that is just totally outrageous that you would try to enforce an arbitration agreement as part of a fine print streaming subscription against the guy whose wife was poisoned at the park. And this gets into the next part of the story. It's not like this is a frivolous lawsuit. This gets into how she died. In October 2023, Kanakporn Tang Swan, her husband, Jeffrey Piccolo, and Piccolo's mother dined at the Raglan Road Irish Pub in Disney Springs, which is part of the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. They chose to eat at the restaurant, the lawsuit states, because they believed it would have proper safeguards against serving dairy and nuts to Tang Swan due to her allergies. The waiter guaranteed the couple that certain foods could be made allergen-free, which the two confirmed several more times, according to the lawsuit. She also ordered a vegan fritter, scallops, onion rings, and a vegan shepherd's pie. Although some of the food delivered lacked allergen-free flags, the waiter again assured them it was allergen-free. But after dinner, Tang Swan, 42, went shopping in the Disney Springs area and began suffering from a severe acute allergic reaction, according to the lawsuit. Despite self-administering an EpiPen, Tang Swan died from anaphylaxis due to elevated levels of dairy and nut in her system, the lawsuit said, attributing the information to a medical examiner's investigation. Now, Pasta, there's a special angle that I want from you on this because you've been in the restaurant business before. Now, the layman in me says if someone has a severe food allergy like that and they keep reiterating it and it's so severe and so sensitive, I would be inclined to advise them not to eat there. I don't know if that's allowed. I don't know if that's what you would do. You were in the restaurant business. How would you handle that? Because that certainly seems like a wrongful death to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they're at fault. The Disney restaurant that served that. You know, we've had situations before. I've been in management in restaurants before, and I remember we had a situation with nuts in an apple pie, right? Like that's always the common thing. Is there nuts? Is there nuts? They said there was no nuts. I had gone along with it. I said, yeah, no problem. And there was nuts in there. And the person went into a little bit of shock. They had the EpiPen. They had some Benadryl. They did that. They were okay. But then I went to my managers and I forced them to have everything from every single item written down and, you know, properly charted out so we can know exactly where it was made, even to go as far as to what cutting boards were used, and the system was used in the back of the house in case they used the nut board for something else.
Right, and there's a cross-contamination risk for people with very sensitive allergies, right?
You're responsible. As a restaurant owner, you are responsible for the food you serve and how you sell your food, how you describe your food, and what you tell your people. They were totally negligent there. You know, that particular waiter was just yesing to death. But this, you know, goes to the whole, you know, I would say that once you start we have a management problem in the United States, right? And every single level of every single business, whether it be government, whether it be, it's a management problem.
There is a total competence drain in this country right now, no doubt.
Right? Yes. It's like, you know, they hire yes men, and that just trickles down. And eventually you got some dummy, some waiter who just yeses to death because they probably got some cheap manager where they yesing to death. I mean, that person, they're completely liable for this right now. They should pay through the nose. And what's even more shocking, it doesn't seem like they're going after a lot of money here, Keaton.
Yeah, 50 grand.
Like it would have been wise of them to just pay this and shut the hell up.
Yeah,
but once again, stupid management is putting them out there, and this is only going to backfire on them. So
you can get a 50 grand payout for a herniated disc nowadays. They're asking 50 grand for the death of a woman at a restaurant, and the malice to try and claim that they have to go through arbitration because they signed up for your streaming service. Like that is fucking outrageous. I mean, that is diabolical.
Hey, you want a Beauty and the Beast? You got it, buddy.
Exactly. All right, so I have to give Russell's take on this because, you know, Russell is all on the Disney beat, and since he's not here to speak for himself, but I'll give you a Russell Dobular take. This is the same Disney that's so excited to announce their Black Alice in Wonderland and the 7 trans dwarfs, but they don't want to pay out for a wrongful death lawsuit. How was that? That was my Russell Dobular.
That was a good. That's a good Russell.
I had to represent his take here because this is his beat, so I couldn't do a Disney story without trying to get his angle in there. Snow White and the dwarf. What did I say? Alice in Wonderland and the 7 trans dwarfs. That should be. I meant Snow White. Yes, that should be their new movie, Alice in Wonderland and the non-binary dwarfs. There you go. Coming to a theater near you under President Kamala Harris. Yeah.
You want to see how cheap Disney is? I had a friend who was at Disneyland waiting on a park ride and listened to the music and was like, wait a second, that's one of my beats, right? And it was one of those beats he would sell online for like 99 cents, $2 or something. Like he sold the beat for like $4.99 or something, whatever it was. Disney used that $4.99 beat that they bought for one of their rides outside of the rides. And he was like, whoa, I'm going to try to sue them. It didn't work. They're like, nope, they're allowed to do that. You sold it. For $4.99, they can do it any way they want. But that's Disney for you right there. Cutting corners, baby.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. All right, we got one more segment to do, and this is the Venezuela segment. We'll take a couple super chats here first, and then we'll get to it. One more segment on the day, folks, and then we'll do the patron scroll after these segments, so I don't want to keep Pasta waiting too long. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Brian Burlatek of the New Atlas had a great show recently showing the mechanics of how think tanks set foreign policy and literally produce people such as friend of the show, Dick Cheney. George Soros, says Sparky, used his connections as a currency trader to help the CIA set up NGOs in Eastern Europe to foment discord during the Cold War. He helps them to this day. Think Soros, think CIA. Thank you, Sparky. DC, thanks for the $2. Real libertarians oppose state and corporate tyranny. I believe you, DC. I might not agree where that ideology goes, but I do agree that, you guys are in good faith. I like a lot of I have a lot of libertarian friends.
Yeah. I think I'm going to vote libertarian for my vote.
Yeah, you're going to vote for Chase Oliver, huh?
I think so. I mean, to tell you the truth, I think the libertarian values right now, even though I don't agree with them economically, and there's a lot of things that are going on with their party where I think they're acting like a bunch of children right now, like some of the bigger names not supporting their candidate, because right now their job is not to win anything, it's just to hold serve. And
well,
don't get me
whoever
wrong,
runs their New Hampshire account is like a fucking Nazi. I mean, that guy's like a fucking freak, right?
We have an interview with him, and we kind of talk about his name is Jeremy Kaufman, who's the only one really running it. Reed Coverdale was using it too as well. They had 3 people, but Reed stepped away and says, I'm not going to make any comments. I'm just going to use my own Twitter. And I keep asking Jeremy, I'm like, Jeremy, why don't you just use your own Twitter? His name is Jeremy Kaufman. We interviewed him at the Libertarian convention in D.C., so I have an interesting conversation. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with that, and that's a big problem when you have a decentralized party. How do you have a centralized message? Especially when you get a candidate coming out that pretty much just worked harder than everybody else. That's why Chase Oliver won. He won the debate. He campaigned in 50 states. Sometimes the guy who works the hardest is going to win, and that was evident when it came to the Libertarian Party, especially since the Mises Caucus didn't have a proper candidate to put through. The guy they put through had a lot of blunders and really didn't get a lot of support. But I think I'm going to vote because I believe, and just what I was about to say, Mike Termont, I had him on my show before. There's a lot of things we agree on. He was just on Twitter making a stupid post the other day going, socialism is evil and stuff. It's like, okay, we know you have to sit there and, fan for your little libertarian people and let them know that you hate socialism, yada, yada, yada. But I still think the most important pressing issue right now is our speech. Freedom of speech is so important right now, the censorship issue. And I think when it comes to libertarian values, Chase's ideology is different than his values. He'll always matriculate back to his ideology, even though his values might be different or his beliefs might be different. So libertarian protection or pushing of civil liberties right now, I think, is the most pressing issue. So even though my vote's not going to count anyways, right? Because I don't want to say anything on YouTube, but I'm going to still, I think if I'm never not going to vote. I'm not going to let them take that away from me. They can cheat me or do whatever, and I'll stand up and complain about it. But I think I'm going to vote for Chase Oliver and the Libertarian Party because I believe that right now, hopefully, the Libertarians can get their act together and put forth a candidate maybe 4 years from now that can really make some noise and get the third party rolling,
All right. Well, there you go. You're the first Chase Oliver voter I've met. I've encountered. Seems like a nice enough guy. You were at the convention.
About it later.
What's that?
You can make fun of me about it later. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, listen,
Chase has got a lot of bad positions. Like, he did not do good on COVID, right? He would never advocated for mandates or lockdowns because he's a libertarian,
right.
But his personal beliefs were really bad. They did not align with mine. Every time I hear these guys talk about Russia, Ukraine, you know what I'm saying? It's once again, I wish they would be more libertarian, more Ron Paulish and say, no, that, hard stop, out of there, goodbye. We should have never, ever been there. But they have to take their time to kind of, talk smack about these other governments and their economic values, right? The anti-social and the anti-communist movement. So, I mean, there's a lot of things I disagree with these guys. But at the end of the day, I still think that that once again, the protection of civil liberties and the pushing for freedom of speech, the pushing for freedom of a press, that they got this guy right here, Free Ross Ulbricht, the movement, which is once again, it aligns. They had the big three: free Julian Assange, free Ross Ulbricht.
Right.
So I think that I'm going to go with the libertarians right now, but Not happy with a lot of things from Chase, but that's where I'm going.
All righty. Well, we got one more story left on the day, and this is a story I was excited to talk to you, Pasta, about. I had not followed the Venezuela election very closely because my baby was born right as this story was breaking, and I was on sort of a modified paternity leave, which was very convenient because I if I'm being honest, we planned the pregnancy around the Venezuela vote. You know, Amanda in mid-November, she told me she was ovulating. I'm like, all right, let's go make this happen now because there's a coup in Venezuela. It's going to happen in July, and I don't really feel like talking about it. So let's make this happen now. So I'll go on leave right as it happens, and I will just sit back and let my co-host take whatever incoming there is to take. So I planned that perfectly. But now that I have Pasta here, who actually goes to these countries and evaluates these things, I do want to get your perspective on this because the Washington Post reports the UN experts say Venezuela election results lack basic transparency. A UN panel of electoral experts said in a new report that Venezuela's National Electoral Authority fell short of following through on basic transparency and integrity measures that are essential to holding credible elections. The panel of 4 experts, one of the few independent groups invited to Venezuela on the occasion of the July 28th vote, my kid was born the day before. See how precisely I planned that? It was perfect. Worked like a charm. Released a report on Tuesday that was not initially expected to be made public. In it, the UN experts wrote that the government's decision to announce an election outcome without publicizing its details has no precedent in contemporary democratic elections. This had a negative impact on confidence in the outcome announced by the National Electoral Council among a large part of the Venezuelan electorate, the report's authors wrote. The report is the latest independent assessment of a presidential election outcome that has been discredited by the United States, and other nations who say the evidence clearly shows a victory for the country's opposition. The National Electoral Council declared President Nicolas Maduro the winner of the election with 51% of the vote, but refused to release any of the precinct-level results of the election, despite promising and implementing a workflow to do so. The opposition, meanwhile, collected, and publicized printouts from voting stations showing that opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez won more than twice as many votes as Maduro. The UN panel of experts said it reviewed a small publicly available sample of those documents. The printed receipts at polling stations featured QR codes and signatures of officials and agents, security features that the panel said appear to be very difficult to be fabricated. The panel, which was not a formal observation mission, was expected to only report internally to the UN Secretary General with recommendations for future improvements. It was invited to observe the vote by Venezuela's Electoral Council as part of an electoral agreement last year between the country's government and its opposition, a deal supported with temporary sanctions relief from the United States. The actual election day was logistically well organized, the panel said, and the Electoral Council was able to detect and quickly resolve a large majority of small technical glitches that were reported during the day. According to the report, the country's electronic results transmission abruptly stopped in the hours after polls closed, a delay that the Electoral Council blamed on a terrorist cyber attack, but the panel was not able to independently verify the presence of external attacks because the Electoral Council postponed and later canceled 3 post-electoral audits, including on the communication system. Final slide here. The Atlanta-based Carter Center, which also sent a group of observers to Venezuela's election, previously said the vote did not meet international standards of electoral integrity and cannot be considered democratic. Jenny Lincoln, head of the Carter Center's mission in Venezuela, has cast doubt over the possibility of an internet hacking disruption. Hours before the UN report was released, Jorge Rodriguez, head of the government-controlled National Assembly, described the UN panel as filled with trash and criticized its decision to make the report public. He proposed a change in the electoral law to ban international observers in future elections. Why do they have to come? He asked. And so I just want to say right at the outset, my position on this is the same as the activists at the People's Forum and stuff. Hands off Venezuela. This election took place under siege. An election that takes place under siege is a rigged election by definition, rigged by the United States, who seeks to overthrow the government of Venezuela. That being said, claims about the vote count are a different question. To me, they are a relatively unimportant question compared to the most important question, which is that if there were shenanigans, it was because the election was being held under siege and under threat of prolonged, crippling sanctions against the people, which are intended to stir unrest against Maduro's government. That being said, Pasta, you travel to these countries to observe these processes. I understand you tried to go to Venezuela, but were not able to go. So do you want to just take that from wherever you want?
Yeah, I was stuck in Nicaragua for an extra 6 days. So I was there for 12 days instead of 6. Supposed to go to Venezuela. Those same people that we agree with, that you said you kind of agree with over there, People's Forum, all the Roy Singham funded groups, PSL and stuff, for the reasons why me and Fiorella were kept out, right? So they didn't let us go over there. But we had members and friends on the ground that we've been and observed elections in other countries before. So we had firsthand information of what was going on, how these processes work and everything like that. Now, let me just point out right now that when we do go to these countries, when I go to these countries, we're not going there to push communism or capitalism or socialism. We're only there to push national sovereignty, right? We take these elections serious.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we're going to scrutinize the system up and down. We're going to give you our best assessment, give it a grade as far as all the things that matter, transparency, chain of custody, the actual process itself. And we're going to tell you where the areas where it could be cheated or what could happen and whatnot. So listen, I have a very good idea of what's going on. It seems when you were reading this article here, and this is the same article I read last night, that their complaints or their objections were kind of planned out beforehand. What they're talking about, this terrorist cyber attack, this is something we were following very closely, is that the CNE didn't report their results right away because they didn't have the ability to, that their website had been hacked or jammed or whatnot. And that's the area which they're kind of just, they're trying to throw the dart and saying, look, these guys were not honest about their system. They were put up results before they even put up their homework. So that is enough to manufacture consent to get in there and say these elections are fraudulent, right? They're not talking about anything about the objections that were put up as far as the opposition and what they brought to the table and their proof, because when they went back and they eventually did their audit and their count, they showed that their system was true and their results are actually real. Now, as far as transparency is concerned, these are simple DRE machines, direct recording electronic devices, and I see a lot of people in your chat don't know where out. Dominion chooses because a lot of Trump people right there that are trying to blame Dominion for the problems. Let me say this
I'm
much.
surprised that Trump people still watch our show. I'm glad they do, but they're a little they're a little mad at me now. But they'll get over it.
They should be. I'd be mad at you too. But that's beside the point. It's the way they have to look at these machines. They have to look at it the same way you look at a gun, right? That's the way these people need to look at it. It's not the gun that's the problem. It's the person using the gun, right? That's the dangerous entity. That's what they always argue. Pro-Second Amendment people. It's like, law-abiding citizens should be able to use the gun. The same goes as the machines, right? It's not the machine itself. It's not Dominion. It's not ES&S. It's not Smartmatic, which are the three major companies that I just mentioned with voting machines. Some of the voting machines they have are actual voting machines themselves. Some are tabulation machines. So we have to understand the difference between the machines, how they're used, and the people using them. In Venezuela, they use a simple DRE machine, which is almost like a cash register. It's called the direct recorded electronical device. You press on the screen. However, a paper trail is created. So then they have a print of a paper trail. They take that over to a separate box. This is all done within the purview of the people. It's all public, so everything can be recorded, everything can be counted, everything can be tracked, and they put that in a ballot box right over there. At the end of the election, they're then going to audit 54% of the boxes. This is the area where I'd like to see them get to 100%, do 100% hand count, but they do 54% of a random audit. It's all public. They match the numbers to the machines. If there was cheating, Keaton, it would have been caught in real time. That's what this system is set up to be. Jimmy Carter said years ago, despite what the Carter Center says now, right? And really, to tell you the truth, if you're the opposition, you should probably go with what the Carter Center said. They're giving you an actual way of protesting that is pre-election, meaning they left the number one candidate off the ballot. Did they have a right to do that? Did the CNE then put their foot on the scale for Maduro and his government by giving him extra time to campaign and extra, radio time or TV time or whatnot. That's the area where you would question things. Also, the Venezuelans voting abroad. There's supposedly 7 million outside Venezuela right now, and only 500,000 of them could vote, right? You could talk about those things and protest that. And if the opposition really thought they would win the election, they would have called for a full hand count audit during the election beforehand. They would have said that. And you would have saw pictures of actual tapes on doors in which you would have said, I can flag this machine. Something's not right. We want this machine looked at. We want an audit of this machine. We saw none of that. We saw none of that in Brazil. We saw none of that in Colombia. We saw none of that now in Venezuela. So if I'm going to say that if I had to make a decision, even though I wasn't on the ground, but I had my team there from everything I saw, I would say that this process is one of the most transparent out there. And anybody in America shouldn't be wagging their finger at Venezuela and telling them they should have a transparent election when our elections have no transparency, no chain of custody. Theirs is damn near flawless. And any of those Trump people who are saying, those populist right people who are saying that Maduro is a dictator and he didn't win, if you ask them honestly, if you ask Donald Trump himself, if you ask Carrie Lake herself, would you rather have Venezuela's election system or the system we have here at home in the United States? They would tell you, if they were honest, answering truthfully, Keaton, they would take Venezuelan system every day of the week and twice on Sunday, because that's the day you're supposed to have an election. And this was a fair, clean, transparent election. One of the best ones. Maduro won. United States is just pissed off because they're using the old playbook of how they do things. You know what I'm saying? Manufacture consent. You don't need to have proof that it was cheated. You just have to plant that seed of a doubt that, that this election was cheated. So therefore you can, work up a regime change like they did. But it's not working because the people understand their election system way better than Americans understand their own election system, and they're going to stand by it and stand by the results. That's what's going on.
Okay, so that was a very thorough answer. And look, I agree there should be no finger wagging at Venezuela no matter what. I mean, no matter what. The only reason we have an interest in their election at all is because we want their oil. And
Exactly.
We want a puppet who's going to give it to us cheap. And if the opposition had their way, they might feel that a Western puppet will get the boot of sanctions off their neck. It'll also turn their country into a plantation for the United States, just like Cuba was a plantation for the United States before the Castro revolution. So yeah, I'm all for that. And that was a very thorough answer. I just want to ask as a question, not necessarily as a challenge, but this paragraph here. So the panel of 4 experts, one of the few independent groups invited to Venezuela on the occasion of the 28th vote, released a report on Tuesday that was not initially expected to be made public. I'm sorry, was that the right thing? No, that was the wrong paragraph. I'm sorry about that. Forgive me. This is the question I had. The National Electoral Council declared President Nicolas Maduro the winner of the election with 51% of the vote, but refused to release any of the precinct-level results of the election, despite promising and implementing a workflow to do so. Why did they renege on that? I just ask as a question.
That's the part where they're saying that they had a hack, that they couldn't report the results to the CNE website. Like I'm saying, that's why the fact that the UN brought this up tells me that they were going with this beforehand, that they knew they were going to use this. Once again, you don't have to prove that the election is unfair, right? Or it was rigged or cheated. You just have to plant that seed of doubt. And this is very broad when they say this, right? They're not telling you exactly what happened. And the CNE reported right away that they can't upload stuff to their website, that it's been hacked, that they're not allowed to do it. But they had everything in hand. They had all the receipts. And that's why when they eventually got to it and they got to the recount, the results were the same for Nicolas Maduro. He had won. They had all that information, but it seems like they had planned this beforehand, and they can use this to manufacture consent to try and say this election was unfair.
So do you take them at their word? So do you believe that there was a hack and that they're being honest in their statement that the reason they're not releasing those tablatures is because they were hacked?
I don't know if it was a hack or one of those. Zach Voorhees, right, who was the Google whistleblower at one point when he blew the whistle on Google. When Tulsi Gabbard's website got taken down, remember one of the biggest times when she was going after Kamala. She was fundraising like crazy.
Right.
You know, what had happened, he explained, is that there's ways to trip the systems, and there's ways of using AI and whatnot to crash a website. So I don't know if it was necessarily hacked, but it was definitely crashed. It was definitely disabled, so they couldn't put stuff there. And like I said, they had all the information right there. This election is meant to be caught if there's any fraud in real time. They had nothing to hide. And it seems to me that this was planted beforehand. Right away, they put out messages that they can't upload to their website. They can't, something's going on, it's hacked. They won't let us put it up there. But they knew they had all the receipts. So it almost seems as if this was planted or planned beforehand.
So
and
when you say they had all the receipts, who had all the receipts and where? And what were those receipts?
Here's the thing. After every single vote, right?
Yeah.
When they close the polls, Keaton, in every single room with every single machine and every single ballot box, which is in the purview of the public, they take those results and they put them on the door. All you have to do is have one member at every single election site meaning you're a team member that can report into you, taking pictures of all the receipts on the doors and sending them back to your headquarters, right? So they knew they had everything there because these results are public. They put the results out in front of every single door. In other words, the counting process is done in front of the purview of the people, of the citizens. That's therefore it's really hard to cheat. So all that information is right there. Colombia, the same thing. We talked about this. They have the mess. I said, you should have at least 2 workers from your team. This is the party that was trying to take back power, right? Gustavo Petro. I said you should have 2 members from your team at each polling spot and take a picture of all the results that come out. You know, me and Fiorelli we were taking pictures of all the tapes to tell, hey, we're reporting the numbers. You can report it in real time. So they knew they had all the count beforehand when the polls closed. Like I said, the best attack against them, if you're the opposition, you should read what the Carter Center said, because they're pretty much saying that the election rigging took place before the election, not allowing the main candidate on the ballot, Corina Marina Machado, right? Not allowing Venezuelans abroad to vote. That's, a form of election fraud. That's where there is a little bit of argument, not on the actual voting process itself.
Okay. All right. Well,
Did I make that make sense? I'm not doing a good job at this.
No, I think
too many people have questions all the time.
No, it's okay. No, I mean, I think you are. I mean, it was a very thorough response. Like I said, I was lucky enough to have missed this because I was on leave when all this was happening. And honestly, like if I'm being totally honest, my take on this is that an election under siege is not a fair race, and the reason it's not a fair race is because it's under siege. And why is Venezuela under siege? Because they want to get top dollar for their resources, and we don't like that. And so we are the bad guys in this. Either way, which is why the question of the vote count is downstream of the larger demands, which is just hands off their country. And why is Anthony Blinken giving his opinion on an election in fucking Venezuela? Why? He doesn't talk about the Paraguayan election. He doesn't talk. We talk about elections anywhere else in the world. We care about the elections in the countries with oil under the ground, and we do try and rig it against people who are going to protect their country's resources because we want South America to be a plantation for us. And to me, that's the whole question, and that's Russell's take on it too. I do have to stick up for my co-host here. That's his ultimate take on it as well. And so I think the details, and I'm glad you provided that information. I will look into it more now that I have a sort of basis to research it, because it's impossible to find those kinds of takes in any sort of print media that I can find. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, they should have left us out, right? That was the problem, that they outsourced their list of people who can come in to those PSL members, those People's Forum, all the Roy Singham groups, and they made sure that we didn't get in there for whatever reason, and that's just a whole discussion in itself. But let me just say this much with the process. Just remember, there's a paper trail for every single vote. The chain of custody starts at the door. It's in front of the purview of the citizens. So, even the points that you were making, which you and Russell were making, that, at the end of the day, it's a vote under siege. Our country, our foreign policy apparatus does want that oil. More importantly, we don't want that oil to fall into the hands of BRICS, all that oil and that gold.
Sure.
We don't want that to happen, at least from that point of view. And that is true. But for me, at the end of the day, I'm all about national sovereignty. Who do the people want? Who do they want to pick? And, at the end of the day, I've seen it plain and simple. This is one of the more transparent elections out there, one of the more transparent systems. If we had this system, Keaton, excuse me, it'd be a lot different. Let's not also forget, they're voting for one person, one job, one president that day, not 50 other, not voting for dog catcher, or they've simplified the process for moments and times like this, because then they can show their homework and show that there's a reason why the majority of the people support the Chavistas. The same way in Nicaragua, while the majority of people support the Sandinistas, they put themselves on the side of the working class and the poor, full stop. And that's what it's all about. They understand that these countries want to come in, especially the United States, and take their resources and then take away their national sovereignty, and they're not going to let it happen.
Yes, I agree with all that. All righty. Well, Pasta, I got to do some housekeeping here on my end, but I won't keep you any longer. You put in 2.5 hours for me at 6 o'clock in the morning. So always a pleasure to see you. Tell everybody where they can find you on the internet, and then tell everybody where they can find you in Chicago next week, because we're going to be seeing a lot of you next week as well.
Well, I'll be on the ground in Chicago outside the convention, because I think that's where the stories are taking place. The protest, we're going to see what that's all about. Everything that's supposed to take place inside the convention, I think the coronation has already happened. In fact, I don't even think Joe Biden's going to show up for the speech. I think they're just going to play him on a big screen. Who knows? But I'll be there with Wyatt Reed from the Gray Zone, Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left, Don DeBar, that character over there. I think Kayla Moppin will be around. Kit Cabello, Hardlands, all those guys. We plan to get together. We're going to try to kidnap Russell and throw him in the studio for a couple minutes with us here and there. But I'll be out there with a microphone and a camera talking to people and getting the story about what's going on. So that's where I'll be in Chicago. I did put up on your chat, there's like 1,700 people here. There was 1,900 people at one time. If you don't know, guys, I started my own channel. Fiorella is off doing her thing in Russia over there, so she's got limited time to do the Combo Couch, and it's the monetized channel anyways. It's going backwards in subscribers. It's been ridiculous. Ever since we've gotten spanked, we've been in the penalty box for quite some time. A lot of people have gotten their monetization back. We have not. We haven't been able to make a dime off our YouTube for 4 years. And that's because we speak about things like elections. Understanding and being able to explain the election process is dangerous to the ruling class. So go on over to my new channel. It's Pasta to Go, the P sign 2. I put the link up, and go ahead and sign up. You'll see my first movie, my documentary. It's pinned up there from Lahaina on Fire. We were there 30 days after the fire, explaining what happened. We were there 100 days after the fire. And I have all that footage that's yet to be released in a movie form, which will be eventually, because we have so much of it. But projects like Lahaina on Fire and be able to get my boots on the ground and do that stuff was great. And I need your help now, because it's very humbling starting a YouTube channel over from scratch again. You got to go through the whole process. And ever since the Putin Tucker interview, and we did a show on that where they took the channel down twice that night in the middle of the live stream, we haven't had the same numbers. People have said they don't see our bells going off anymore. I do my show with the Homeless Left, Matt Weinglass, a lot. His YouTube channel got taken down a month ago. Fiorella's channel got taken down 3 weeks ago. So we need your help. If you can go over there to the YouTube, to the Rumble, Pasta to Go, help us out. Just join, be a subscriber. I'd love to see you there. And thank you so much, guys. And thank you so much, Keaton, for having me on. It's always fun to come hang out with you guys whenever I get the chance. And I look forward to hanging out with Russell and bagging on Chicago pizza and making Kit Cabello cry when we go there, because that's what we're going to do.
All right. Well, that will be a lot of fun. Yes, we got 1,700 in the YouTube chat, 964 on Rumble. Go follow Pasta to Go, and we will see you next week, my friend. We will be partnering up with you for at least one broadcast, I'm sure. And thank you so much for making the time for us this morning. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you so much, Keaton. Appreciate it.
All righty. Have a good one.
Later, buddy.
Pasta Jardula, everybody. Great show. Thank you, Pasta, as always, for making time for us. All right, folks, we are going to get to the rest of our Rumble rants and Super Chats. But before we do that, I do want to pause for a word from our sponsors. And those sponsors, of course, our patrons. Thank you very much for signing up. If you would like to support this program, you can go to patreon.com/do dissidents. We are going to be doing some subscriber exclusive content from Chicago. Russell has just landed safely in Chicago, so that's good news. He texted me a few minutes ago. So we're doing at least one exclusive patron stream from Chicago, in addition to the rest of the perks, which are call-in exclusive supporter live streams, your name up in lights here on the patron scroll, as well as, of course, call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As, which are held exclusively on Rumble. You could sign up at patreon.com/do dissidents. You can also sign up to our Substack, dodissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at dodissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, that bright red join button underneath the video player takes you to our locals. You're going to definitely want to be on our Substack newsletter heading into the convention, because our schedule is going to be somewhat irregular during the convention. We're going to be doing a lot of streams. Some of those will be Rumble exclusive streams, at least some, if not all. We're talking to Rumble about that now. But be on our Substack so you get a newsletter announcement before we go live telling you when and where we're going live. The schedule is going to be a little chaotic next week because the convention is going to be very chaotic next week, and Russell's going to be on the ground. So to stay on top of our streaming schedule, join our newsletter at dodissidents.substack.com. You can join the newsletter for free. The perks that I just outlined, that's if you want to become a paid member for $5 a month. That helps us tremendously. But you get the newsletter for free, as well as audio podcast versions of every live stream for free. So join that for free, please, so that you stay in touch with us next week for our on-the-ground coverage of the DNC. That's dodissidents.substack.com. That is very important, please, and thank you very much. All right, folks. So before we go, obviously, we have some more Super Chats and Rumble Rants that we want to get to here. So let me open my windows right now. Sorry about that. Got a little confused here. A lot going on. Eric Cousseau, thanks for the $5. Read the Devil's Chessboard. The CIA was created by the oligarchs to serve corporate power. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Sparky, thanks for the $2. We have a massive competence crisis in the U.S. Thank you, Sparky. Echoing my point. Beautiful. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Many have been heavily propagandized by the West that Putin's a bad guy, including creating false flags blamed on him. Putin is actually a reasonable, if not righteous man. Thank you, Sparky. Fun fact, the Carter Center is corporate captured by corporations that benefit from Venezuelan regime change. They sponsor them at nearly 100. Jimmy Carter's out of the loop. He is 100. He's coming up on 100 years old. He wants to survive long enough to vote for Kamala Harris. That's his goal. Sparky, thanks for the $5. So despite Pasta's details and logical explanation, your take on the Venezuela election is still mealy-mouthed duplicity. All right, Sparky. Let me see.
You're talking to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone.
Seb Griffiths, thank you for the $5. Keaton, bit of baseball history for you. My great uncle was a pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Subway Sam Nahem, if you want to look it up. Oh, wow. That's crazy. All right. I will look that up. Thank you, Seb. Appreciate that. Basil Beshkov says, when did we the people turn into we the elites? Thank you, Basil. Appreciate that. Okay. His Highness, thanks for the $1. Great job, Pasta. Just get Chase elected, and then you can push him right. Thank you, His Highness. Appreciate that. I like that one. Joey Butterfuckface. Hey, it's been a while, man. Good to see you here again. We met Joey Butterfuckface canvassing for Jose Vega in the Bronx a few months back. To Craig's point that the system is built on fraud, you need to see the 2010 documentary Inside Job, the largest global fraud ever. No one went to jail, but for a brief moment, they were afraid. Thank you, Joy Butterfuckface. Brat Disatva, thank you for the $10. Robert Barnes is unquestionably populist right. His claim is that the accusation of election fraud perpetrated by Maduro's regime are BS. Okay, there you go. Point taken there. Yeah, no, look, I thought Pasta gave a good answer. Like I said, I will take that and chew on it. I don't know. Like I said, I'm agnostic on the issue. I know, Sparky, you may be upset that I didn't hear Pasta and say, oh, now I think exactly what Sparky thinks because Pasta explained it to me. That's not how we do the channel here. But I certainly respect Pasta's take on this. He's walked the walk on this, and so once again, I can't say based on that alone. Like I'll look into it, obviously. But either way, like I don't know what you don't understand about the election was under siege. The West tried to rig the election. Therefore, it's a rigged election because the U.S. obviously wants to overthrow that government so we can get the oil. And we should not have any investment whatsoever in the outcome of a Venezuela election. That is just preposterous on its face. Okay, I believe that is all we got today, folks. I think that is everything here. So thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate you all very much. We will be back here live Sunday night at 7 p.m. with Russell in the house. Russell will be in Chicago. That is our pre-convention show. I believe there are still a couple tickets left for the Jimmy Dore live panel show in Chicago. That's tomorrow night at the Ramova Theater. So you can go to jimmydore.com for tickets there. Russell will be on stage with Jimmy, Steph, Mike McRae, and Kurt Metzger. So that'll be a lot of fun. I know some of you are already planning on going, and so that's great. I'm sure you guys will have a great time. And then we are live Sunday night at 7 p.m. on all of our platforms. And then next week is Convention Week, where we will be streaming often, but at a somewhat randomized schedule according to events. And so make sure you join our Substack at dudissidents.substack.com so you're on top of that. All right. Ivan Ivanovich, Brianna Joy Gray said that she has openly and happily offered to come back and is waiting for you to invite her. Please do so and cut through the infighting. So comment on the left. All right. I mean, we did DM her twice, and she has not responded to us. So, I mean, how many times are we supposed to DM her? We'll try one more time. She said openly. Did she say that recently on the air sometime? Because I don't want to keep messaging her if she's not going to respond. But if she said that recently, I mean, we have 2 DMs to her that went unanswered. But, I mean, if she wants to come back on, well, I guess we'll try one more time. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Even your boy Blinken quietly admitted recently that Maduro won. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's go to some Rumble Rants. Do we have any more? I'm just checking that app here. Okay, perfect. All right, guys. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate that. And we will see you back here Sunday night. That's right. Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate you all very much. And that is when we will see you next. Russell will be live in Chicago, and then next week is DNC week. Appreciate Craig Pasta Jardula for making time for us this morning. We appreciate you all being here for us this morning. Please hit that like button on the way out, hit that subscribe button on the way out, hit that follow button on the way out if you're watching over on Rumble, and we will see you Sunday night. Thanks for this morning. Until we see you again, be safe, be well, courage. Where's the cowbell? Where does he have the ball? Here it is. The singing bowl, rather. Courage. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Please clap.